32 picks have been made. That means Hayden and I have 32 names and prospect and player to team fits to discuss tonight. Man, oh man, round one was an absolute whirlwind. I'm still catching my breath.
Same.
From pick 2 to pick 32. There is so much to discuss and uncover because, Hayden, what I love to say is that the NFL draft, NFL teams have to tell us the truth. And boy, do we get some truths tonight.
Yeah, and we got some unexpected truths even before the draft even started with the huge trade off the top of it. To me, like the biggest storylines of the draft, you have obviously the Travis Hunter trade, Shedeur Sanders falling there, Jackson Dart actually going round one. But there were some like interesting, like unprecedented moves in terms of compensation for next year's picks as well. The Packers finally draft a wide receiver in the first round. And it just seemed like Green Bay like knocked it out of the park. It seemed like the environment was really fun. So it was a really fast-paced draft for me trying to come up with notes and stuff, but better to do it with at least a little bit of time than doing this live.
Love that all of you are joining us live right now. And to those of you that are joining us on Friday morning, we appreciate you as well. This is just going to be a pick-by-pick discussion along with grades come from the brain of Hayden Winks. Most importantly, we want to talk about how these prospects and players fit in these offenses, in these defenses, and tell us how they change, the course of maybe some seasons for 2025 and beyond. So we really are just going to go from pick 1 to pick 32 in order and just give some thoughts on each. That is the best way of doing this. And that means we kick things off with maybe the only predictable outcome of the entire NFL draft.
Yep.
The Tennessee Titans selecting Cam Ward, quarterback, Miami, number 1 overall. We've talked about Cam Ward at length. Maybe not enough because this is something that we've known for a very long time. Let's just reiterate that Cam Ward is the all-time leader in passing touchdowns in college football history. What an incredible career, starting at Incarnate Word to Washington State to now the number 1 overall pick. What is he going to bring to this Titans offense with Brian Callahan and company?
He, to me, has a path to top 10 arm talent, and he's got a little bit of creativeness in terms of just his playmaking out of structure. I think that he didn't do enough as like in the scrambling and the quarterback design game. I'm curious if Titans are going to do that. The fit with Callahan is going to be a little bit interesting because Callahan kind of wants a structured quarterback and Cam Ward more of a freestyle artist. He's maybe closer to like the Kyler Murray, Jordan Love kind of tier to me, but that's the debate. It was either Cam Ward or you going with the unique guy in Travis Hunter. It's just really hard to find a quarterback with the upside of being a top 10 guy in the NFL. And I do think Cam Ward has that.
Yeah. And I'll find the tweet, but I believe it came out what the Giants offered for the number 1 overall selection. Definitely need to find that because I'm sure it tempted the Tennessee Titans. And maybe at one point in February prior to the combine, maybe they would have considered it. But as the process went along, they certainly appreciated their connection with Cam Ward. And to me, what he brings to the table is he's an arrogant passer. He's ambitious. He's confident with the football. There are negatives to that, but again, focusing on the positives, he just makes really tight window throws, postage stamp things, and attacks those areas of the field and tight coverage looks that a lot of other quarterbacks do not. I actually think there's a bit more mobility to his game, that he could scramble a bit more often, that he did not do often enough last year. And then, he just wants to buy as much time as possible for his wide receivers to get open down the field and give them a chance on any given play. Now, on the negative end of that, real quick, Hayden, I do think there might be a couple, at least during his rookie year, some Will Levis moments. And cover your ears, Titans fans, because this also happened with him at Miami, because he does have this playmaker mentality to him. He doesn't know when a play needs to die, to live for the next one. He will throw across his body, and there might be like one of those occasions every single game, but we saw with Will Levis too, there was more, but a couple of those like literally ended in losses for this team. I think Cam Ward is a far superior prospect and player to Will Levis, and I wouldn't be surprised if that is reined in with him, and I don't know if it ever will be with someone like Will Levis.
Yeah, you have to get the big plays by him kind of extending. He's got the arm talent to fit it in there, but at the same time, there's going to be some cost to that. He might take a couple strip sacks. He might force a couple balls over the middle, and that's just going to be over time. He'll get better and better at that. He's also really interesting that he played in like 3 very unique offenses and just like kept graduating from that. So really excited for Cam Ward to go first overall. Really cool story. He's a 0-star recruit. Like, you just have to applaud that 0-star recruit. Now you're going to be the first overall pick in the draft class. Everyone seems to love Cam Ward as well. So happy for Titans fans to give them some hope here. And I do think that he at least has a path to kind of being that like second tier kind of quarterback range. It was of note, their staff at least compared him to Patrick Mahomes, which he's definitely a more miniature version from Patrick Mahomes. But stylistically, I do understand the avenue they were kind of talking about with it.
And here's the report and tweet I was referring to from Teron Davenport, who does great work covering the Tennessee Titans. Quote, the Giants offered this year's first, next year's first, and multiple other picks in exchange for the number 1 overall pick. Pretty clear the Titans are in love with Cam Ward. I would expect them, even after signing Tyler Lockett just 24 hours ago, to attack the wide receiver position on day 2 and most likely the second round.
Yeah, I can see that. They might trade down and draft somebody like Kyle Williams. I can totally see that. That was a lot of compensation, though, just to turn down. Like I did think that was a notable report. Getting a next year's 1 plus more as an offer does show you the difference in how the NFL viewed Cam Ward versus the other prospects in this draft class. And like the only thing that you have to think about with the Titans here is just make sure that Travis Hunter isn't actually Shohei Ohtani. Like that's like the only thing that you can kind of go back and forth with here. I think it's harder to find a franchise quarterback. Yes. And they definitely paid the price to go up as well. But that was like the only thing that they had to debate was the uniqueness of Travis Hunter versus the franchise quarterback.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say here? There are some wide receivers on the board. And by the way, tomorrow around noon, I would expect us to have a day 2 second round mock draft on the channel. So if you are new around here, hit that subscribe button, leave a thumbs up. There is so much more NFL draft coverage, so much more on the channel. Plus, on all these offensive players that we discuss here tonight, there's an individual 7 to 15 minute prospect profile on them on the channel. So if you want more Cam Ward, there's plenty there. Okay. Let's do it. Let's have the conversation at number 2 overall, because yes, the Jacksonville Jaguars made the selection of wide receiver and cornerback Travis Hunter. Just first, quickly, people who watched our mock drafts, listen to all of those. I thought that the Browns, when receiving these phone calls, would immediately tell every single person just to eat dirt. And that turned out to be absolutely false. Because Hayden, this is the compensation that Ian Rappaport at the time reported. Browns receive the 5th overall pick from the Jaguars, the 36th overall pick in the second round, 126th overall, which is the 4th round of the 2025 draft, and then a 2026 first round pick from the Jaguars. Meanwhile, the Jaguars got that 2nd overall pick, the 104th, which is in the 4th round, and the 200th overall pick in the 6th round. There's a ton of different layers of this conversation. Do you want to talk about the player first? That is Travis Hunter, or do you want to talk about the trade first from the Jaguars end and the Browns end?
Let's just do the compensation, because just to get that out of the way here, if you put all of these draft picks into the trade charts, what happens was the Jaguars traded basically the equivalent of a future like top 10-ish draft pick. If you put all in, like that was the difference between what would have been a fair deal and then the premium that Travis Hunter they deemed worthwhile. Not a surprise that Gladstone learning under Les Snead goes with the F them picks strategy. And I think if you're just like looking at where Jacksonville's at and where the Browns are at, Jacksonville's roster is just in a better state of the union than where the Browns are. So I understand if we're going to pick a side here, the Jaguars want Trevor Lawrence to win right away. And the Browns, they are definitely multiple picks from being a serious franchise. So that was the calculus. Is a really risky decision, I think, on both sides of it. Obviously, we know how good Travis Hunter is going to be. I love Trevor Lawrence, Brian Thomas, Travis Hunter, plus those 2 edge rushers is a really good foundation for them. But the pressure's on for Travis Hunter to be worth the pick. And then also they don't have a lot of draft picks to fill out the rest of the roster, but that's what Gladstone was used to when he was learning from the Rams.
Okay. I actually want to save my Browns thoughts on this and the move they made for the number 5 overall pick when we get to it, because I think most of those fans will jump to the timestamp with that. You mentioned James Gladstone working under Les Snead and the LA Rams from Mia O'Brien at his press conference. First, Travis Hunter will primarily spend the offseason program, according to Liam Cohen, on offense, but they'll, quote, have to be fluid. Multiple conversations with every department on staff about the process of a player, both on offense and defense. And this is what I was referring to. James Gladstone on trading away 2026 first round pick. I'm pretty familiar with man, fuck them picks. I'm uniquely positioned to navigate this.
There it is.
Okay. There it is. And I thought this was impossible. Like, Travis Hunter is a unicorn. I understand that people get upset when we use the word elite or generational, but this man played over 100 snaps in, 10 games this past season?
Yep.
And was the number one cornerback prospect in this class and the number one wide receiver prospect in this class. 2 pillar positions when you are building an NFL roster. He moves like Odell Beckham. He moves like Justin Jefferson. He has that fluidity to his game. And again, already being the best pass catcher in this draft, while not full-time practicing at that wide receiver spot in every single week, every single day, or being in the team meetings in that area, makes my brain think, okay, what is going to happen when he does spend all of his time most likely focusing on that wide receiver spot, and then we can turn him into man-to-man coverage on third downs on the opposite end of this. Again, I'll save my Browns conversation later, but what can that future first round pick turn into a blue chip potential Hall of Fame talent that checks a lot of those boxes like Travis Hunter? I know they want it to be a quarterback, but hey, this also makes the Jacksonville Jaguars arguably one of the most talented rosters on offense, and especially the wide receiver position, I think, across the league.
Right. And he was playing all those snaps in altitude. So, and I think this is going to be one of the staffs, just with Liam Cohen and then Gladstone running the ship, where I do think that they're going to try to make him play both sides of the ball. That might not happen in the first season, but I would expect him to be an offensive player first and then have a little bit of corner over the course of his rookie contract here. He has to be as good as we're talking about to make this trade worth it, but I do feel very confident that he's going to be an absolute superstar here. And before the draft even got started, we had Gladstone and Liam Cohen. They said they want to score touchdowns. So I feel pretty confident Travis Hunter's going to be playing offense.
Those win
here.
Games.
Yes, they want to score touchdowns, and he helps score touchdowns as well. And yeah, him and Brian Thomas, it's one of the more exciting duos, and they're probably going to be tied to Trevor Lawrence for the next decade.
I mean, to be honest, none of us thought that the Browns would trade out of this selection, so I didn't make this jump. But, I mean, we saw a guy play at Jackson State who's from West Palm Beach, Florida, and now he gets to play in Duval County in Florida.
It's pretty awesome.
It's pretty awesome, man.
Yeah.
Like, and I even think his game can develop even more in all these areas that we're talking about, especially at the wide receiver position. This is Liam Cohen, who came from what he did in Tampa Bay and already utilizing Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And then when those guys got injured, elevating even the offense with Jalen McMillan, who got replaced tonight. We'll get to that a bit later on. And Cade Otton, and then is able to turn Bucky Irving into a really prime time. Like, I just love that the Jaguars and this new, brain trust to lead this organization was in the middle at pick 5. And they were almost like the pendulum that could have swung, I think, that top 10 picks in either direction. Either they trade back with the Chicago Bears for that 5th overall pick, and then that would have ended up with Ashton Jeanty. And instead they did the opposite and traded up for a truly one-of-a-kind talent that is not available in every single year. You and I do this, watch dozens and hundreds of prospects. There's not someone like Travis Hunter that comes around every single year. And I can't say that about basically any other player in this entire draft.
And what's great for us just as fans, and especially for fantasy football, is we know Travis Hunter has a legit quarterback. If he would have gone to the Browns, we would have been playing this game, refreshing the quarterback every single year until they figured that out. And now we have Travis Hunter actually being unlocked with who I think is a top 10 offensive mind at play caller with Liam Cohen after what I saw from them last year. And then I think you're going to see the best of Trevor Lawrence. And you're going to get some nice schemed up opportunities for Travis Hunter, who's excellent in the screen game. So I'm super excited for this. I'm really glad that this happened. This is going to make just football in general more fun to watch on Sundays. And I'm sure if they put Jacksonville on Thursday Night Football every single week, like they always do, now we actually have a reason to watch.
Yes, 100%. I'm going to ask you, and you can plead the fifth and take at least a sleep on this. But Brian Thomas Jr. was a first rounder in fantasy football drafts. This is a pretty big investment across from him. Yeah. I'm not of the opinion always that when another wide receiver is added to the room that's going to take away from the number one, especially when it elevates the offense to this degree over someone like De'Ami Brown and Parker Washington and those types of guys. But yes or no, still comfortable taking Brian Thomas Jr. in the first round?
I had him like 8th or 9th overall. He'd probably be still in my top like 16 for sure, just because he's so damn good at football. But I mean, yeah, this definitely hurts him. Like Travis Hunter's going to get the ball a ton here. Now, I think they're going to score more points because Travis Hunter's on the team, so it's not like a complete disaster. But yeah, like Trevor Lawrence also, like he's been an average NFL starting quarterback. He needs
in a lot of shit situations, I would say. Like,
correct.
I think that his first year is kind of still held against him, and that was arguably one of the worst situations we've ever seen for a quarterback. And then in the second half, which was really his worst, his rookie year, they emerged and made the playoffs in his second season, and he got injured.
Yeah, no excuses now. Like we better see the top 10 Trevor Lawrence from this point forward. No more excuses here. This is time to go.
I am a T-Law apologist, though. We even have him on the channel if you want to check this out, breaking down his best game ever. And I cracked a joke at him as well, saying that I could throw 5 interceptions and a half. He was a great sport. Trevor Lawrence is the man.
He is the man.
He's the man. All right, we'll come back to the Brown side of that equation. That brings us to the only other predictable selection. Well, there's one more. The Giants selecting Abdul Carter with the number 3 overall pick. Just your thoughts on this.
Yeah, this was pretty much a layup for them. They tried to make a push for the first overall pick, like they talked to. They got shut out for that, and then what do? Best player available, and then we figure out what they're going to do at quarterback later on in the draft. Abdul Carter is, to me, multiple tiers above Kayvon Thibodeau. We'll see if he gets traded. You could have 3 guys in a rotation. You could have a little bit of insurance, but you're also going to see the best of Abdul Carter just because you have Lawrence on the inside. You have Brian Burns on the other side. There's going to be one-on-one opportunities for him. And one of the best traits, you guys will love it when you see him in the big leagues. He knifes inside like pretty much nobody else. Like, to me, like that is his signature move. He can win with just his speed on the perimeter. But when he does that counter move inside, he is coming in at a high rate of speed. You'll see him line up in the A gap too. So they're going to have a lot of creativity with this. This is not like the throwback Giants with those like monster edge rushers. It's a different body types here, but he's a really fun player. And this was, to me, like a no doubt about it. You had to take him.
I am the worst host so far. I forgot to ask for your grades in each of these picks at the moment. So can we go back to Cam Ward and give his grade?
Okay, yeah. Cam Ward, I gave him an A-. I almost went with just the full A. I did actually end up tweaking, and I did put Travis Hunter as my number 1 prospect in this class. And I might have, if I was the Titans, might have just taken Travis Hunter and figured out quarterback later.
Okay.
But totally justifiable. It's like only those 2 guys, A-, keep it moving. And then obviously with Jacksonville, I gave it a B just because there's a big premium to pay. But he's an A+ prospect here. I'm not that concerned about the draft picks, and I do trust that Gladson's going to do it. And then with Abdul Carter, this was an A, best player available. I don't know how you would argue it.
Yeah, the juice that he brings from the outside is top tier, and there were really like 2, to use the term, blue chip prospects in this class that I think everyone could agree on, in Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. I think my one hang up, and we can go to Joe Shane, who was asked this question during his post-draft presser, that they are going to pick up Kayvon Thibodeau's 5th-year option. Quote, Kayvon is going to be here. You can't have enough pass rushers. So that brings Kayvon Thibodeau, right now at least, on the Giants for this season and next season. Historic Super Bowl winning Giants teams had a multitude of pass rushers. Michael Strahan, Justin Tuck, Osi Umenyiora, Matthias Kiwanuka, and heck, we can even add Jason Pierre-Paul, right? There's a difference. There is a difference. Justin Tuck could play inside, You could rotate all these players around. They were just bigger, massive bodies. That is not Brian Burns. That is not Kayvon Thibodeau. That is not Abdul Carter. These guys are firmly at their best outside the furthest tight end or offensive tackle and rushing from the edge. So while, again, it's part of almost the lineage of great New York Giants defenses, I don't think they can be used in the same way. And I wouldn't be surprised if like a year from now, we do hear Kayvon Thibodeau's name, but I understand it from, again, Joe Shane and Brian Dayball's standpoint of we have to win. So we have to have the most talent on our team possible. So let's keep these 3 guys right now.
Yeah, they have a superstar defensive line just with their defensive tackles as well. You can't have 3 edge rushers on the field in some pass rush situations there. They can get creative with that. A little bit of insurance goes a long way as well. I think for Kayvon Thibodeau, he eats so many snaps. Like, he's like a workhorse out there. You do wonder if, let's say you take him down from like 85% snaps down to like 65% snaps moving forward, if you're actually going to get some of those pressure rate numbers to go up a little bit, and hopefully it's just not as dinged up. So I'm expecting a little bit of a rotation there, but I would put the pecking order as Burns and Abdul first and second, and then Kayvon Thibodeau as the number 3 in line.
All right, we'll go to pick number 4, and that brings us to the New England Patriots selecting, I guess, left tackle Will Campbell. Your thoughts?
Look how tiny his arms are. He's like holding this up. You can barely even see him.
They're fully outstretched here. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. In comes the edge rusher.
You hater.
Yeah. So I just like disagreed with Will Campbell versus most people. Like, in consensus rankings, he was 5th overall. And I had him down at 23rd overall. He was not my top prospect there. All of the top edge rush, or all the offensive tackle prospects, had some flaws. Will Campbell is an elite mover, and he's an awesome guy. So he kind of fits the mold. It just, does he have enough strength and the length to kind of be able to prevent guys from cutting inside and against all these bull rushers? I thought that was a problem a little bit at college. But for the most part, he's going to be a good pick for the Patriots. I think long-term, he's probably going to be a guard, but they needed a guard as well.
Yeah, I think the Patriots were kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place with this one, where they had to be the first one to take an offensive lineman in this class, and they were just outside of the 2 blue chip talents outside of quarterback in this class, again, in Hunter and Abdul Carter. I just want to read what their offensive line is prior to adding Will Campbell. Yeah. Left tackle would have been Vadarian Lowe. Then your left guard is most likely Cole Strange. Your center is Garrett Bradbury, who was simply replaced and cut after being a first-round pick by the Minnesota Vikings. Mykel Winu is at right guard, and right tackle is Morgan Moses at age 49. So, adding, yes, if he's their offensive line 1, this makes total sense. And to your point, it doesn't seem like Mike Vrabel has had an issue with arm length at all. Now, the arm length has been going like this. The difference is the wingspan. This is like historically low wingspan, which is, I'm not going to say more consistent, but can be quite different than straight up arm length. I will say, even if he does become a guard, again, Mike Vrabel just did this with Peter Skoronski at pick number 11 overall. This guy started multiple years at LSU. I will add, I think you could probably pick out at least one big time win by like all the pass rushers that were drafted in the first round that faced off against Will Campbell. And like that becomes more difficult because you're facing off against those guys and guys even better in the NFL every single week.
Yeah, just my opinion. I thought the pocket collapsed even when he wasn't giving up like a legit pressure. But we'll see. And the opinions on this draft class beyond the top 3 guys that we mentioned were all over the place. Like, there would be some teams that would have Will Campbell ranked where I have him ranked in the 20s, and then some other teams would have thought he was the best player available. So just one of those draft classes where pick 4 to pick 32, not that big of a difference, and you have to make a pick with now that you're sitting there, and they did not have a trade offer available to them. So we'll see what happens if Will Campbell is just going to be the outlier that wins, or if he's going to have to kick inside, and then you're drafted a guard at 4th overall.
I'm sure someone else has reported this. I am not reporting it. I also did hear whispers that the Patriots, along with the Jaguars, made an offer for the number 2 overall selection. The Jaguars just went a step further, which included that 2026 first rounder. I can't be the first one to say this, but I did hear that through the grapevine.
It's not a report, but I did sure hear this. I want you guys to know about it.
That's information that they should hear.
Stand up for yourself. This is a report. The Patriots.
No, I'm sure someone else already reported it. I'm just saying I'm probably not the first one to put that out there in the ether.
Okay. Well, it's the first time.
I don't want to claim that I am.
Okay.
So, but if I am, there's a report.
There's a lot of insiders that are listen to somebody else and then copy paste it. You'll be fine.
Oh, okay. Your grade.
I gave this one a C-. I acknowledge that this is like the position that they needed, and it's just a difference of opinion, and I can easily be wrong about this. Other teams could be wrong about this. We'll see.
All right. Before we move on, there are over 3,000 of you watching with us at this very moment. Leave a thumbs up. If you leave a thumbs up, more people will join at the exact same time. If you're new around here, hit that subscribe button. we're posting a ton, and I mean a ton of NFL draft content. And then we immediately flip on over to your dynasty rookie rankings for dynasty fantasy football. And then best ball summer is around the corner. If you're new around here, Underdog is the home of best ball summer. The best thing you can do, click the link in the description down below, deposit and get up to $1,000 in bonus funds. If you're in Georgia, California, Texas, Missouri, and a whole bunch of other states, you can be playing on Underdog right now. All right, let's do it. Cleveland Browns at pick 5. Granted, once again, you have to keep in mind that they also get the 36th pick tomorrow, the 126th overall pick in the 4th round, and then a 2026 first round pick. But then I will add, their 5th overall selection was defensive tackle Mason Graham from Michigan. Your thoughts on the player and his fit here with the Cleveland Browns?
Yeah, so for the player, I had him ranked 9th overall. I saw a good player. I did not see a blue chip player. We're also dealing with a little bit of an outlier in terms of just his size, and the production was good. It wasn't fantastic. This does not look like Jalen Carter stepping off the bus here, but he is really feisty. He has really great motor, low pad level, great hand usage. So he makes up for it in a lot of ways. So I think he's going to be a good player for the Cleveland Browns. You definitely needed to get Myles Garrett some help on the defensive line. Like, he's getting double teamed all the time. I'm not sure if that's going to like fully unlock Myles Garrett, but I think you're getting a good player from for the Browns here. I think like the big thing, just in conjunction with the trade, to me, trading down, getting future draft capital, getting like the winning the spreadsheets of the trade. At some point, you have to win on offense. I just watched the Cleveland Browns have the best or second best defense of like the last 2 decades, a couple of seasons ago. At any point during that season, did you think that they had any chance of even making it to the conference championship? You didn't. The reason why is because you didn't have a good enough offense. At some point, you got to go back to the offensive side of the ball here. So we'll see what they do on tomorrow, and they're probably just waiting for next year's draft class to find their quarterback. But at some point, man, like enough of the defense stuff. You got to go shoot for some upside on offense.
Yeah, I get winning the spreadsheets. I get winning the trade charts. I get that this is Andrew Berry and this is Paul DePodesta from the baseball background. I'm also not reporting this. Wouldn't be surprised if some ownership involvement went around along with this selection as well. I just get nervous when the process is what you put in your back pocket and that's the winner here and not the results. Once again, I will bring up that hopefully with this first round pick next year, you can also draft the unicorn. And the unicorn in this year's draft and in recent drafts has been Travis Hunter. Like, hopefully you can draft a prospect to the caliber of the talent that you could have just selected simply at number 2 overall. Now, if it's all just to acquire more draft picks to go get a quarterback next year, what if you win 8 games this year because your defense is so good, Kevin Stefanski's a good play caller, and then the Jaguars go out there and somehow make it to the 3rd round of the playoffs or the AFC Championship, then you're getting something at pick 25. So that's pick 15 and 25. How is it going to really get you a top 2, top 3 overall pick at the quarterback position? And I just, feel for Browns fans who probably won the spreadsheet wars with the Julio Jones trade. And I'm just nervous that history is going to repeat itself. Again, Julio Jones, pick 6. And yes, they did move back to pick 21, but what they got in return was Phil Taylor, Greg Little in round 2, Owen Marisic, who's a fullback in round 4, then Brandon Weeden, speaking of the quarterback of the future, the next season in round 1, and then they traded that 4th round pick they also got. So I'm sure the process won in this one too, but at some point the process has to turn into good picks and good selections that helps you win and helps your offense like Travis Hunter would have.
Yeah, it just we just saw this with the Bryce trade with the Bears, and you just see where this thing kind of irons out here. I think for the Browns, they're probably just looking at this and be like, man, Travis Hunter would have been awesome here, but if we didn't have a guy to throw the ball to him over the next couple of years, then what is this even for? So I think that's probably their thinking here. And then Travis Hunter has to be as good as we think he's going to be. I feel pretty good about that assessment there, but that is part of the calculus there. So I feel for Browns fans, because you had months and months that you knew that you were getting somebody to bring some good vibes to this team, and now you just get rug pulled away from them, and now you're going to go into the season with you've got an upgrade at defensive tackle, and we don't even know who's going to be throwing the ball to Jerry Jeudy and Njoku. You don't know who the running back's going to be. The offensive line is falling apart. Like everything about this, it just like feels like so NBA in the future. And at some point, the process does have to come through. So I would say like the pressure's more on the Browns of hitting these next picks right than it is on Jacksonville at this moment. So the spreadsheets can win as much as they can. You have to get some results in the building. And I want some offensive results. I've seen what this team looks like with a good defense and a bad offense. It did not move me whatsoever.
Question, and again, we'll do our second round mock draft tomorrow. But now, with seemingly the tunnel vision being on the 2026 NFL draft, would you even expect the Cleveland Browns to select a quarterback at 33 overall with the first pick in the second round tomorrow, or now 36 overall that they got from the Jacksonville Jaguars?
Yeah, I have no idea. I think that they will consider Jalen Milroe just as like the complete roll of the dice. Let's see what happens in terms of upside here. But that's like goes back into like this is all a game of odds to Barry, and like Jalen Milroe has maybe a 15% chance of hitting the jackpot, and then the other 85% it goes busto. So we'll see what happens. I'm guessing that they're just like looking at next year's draft class, which is supposed to be a little bit friendlier in terms of quarterback play. And I'm guessing that they're just looking at their roster and like, yeah, we'll probably be picking the top 5 again after what the season's going to look like. It's not going to be fun.
Yeah. I think they still could. We've seen in the past, Jimmy Clausen was a second round pick. Then the next year, Cam Newton was. Josh Rosen was pick 12 or 17. And then Kyler Murray was the number 1 overall pick the next year. So I wouldn't put it past them to select one of the quarterbacks at 33 or 36. If it's Tyler Shuck, if it's Jalen Milroe, it doesn't seem like it's going to be Shedeur Sanders. So yes. And if they strike gold, then they even have more capital next year. But man, just passing on someone like Travis Hunter that's checked literally every single box for Mason Graham is make good on the process. All right. You can say process W and hang that banner that you want, but offense really matters. It really matters. Okay. Moving on. Las Vegas Raiders pick 6 shocked me, Hayden. I was certain that there was no way that Spytek, Pete Carroll would select Ashton Jeanty, even though it was, chalk for weeks and weeks and months and months. I thought they were going to go offensive line, and they didn't. Your thoughts on Ashton Jeanty?
Just a superstar player. It just comes down to the evaluation of the team. Like to me, we just watched Saquon Barkley on the Giants, and it didn't matter how good he was. The team didn't go anywhere. And then you see him on a good team where the blocking matters, and all of a sudden he's like the best player in the league. So I think the Raiders are maybe like a little bit caught in between both of those. I think the offensive line is like, I guess, functional. Geno Smith is an average starter in the league. I don't think the weapons beyond Brock Bowers are very intriguing, but I know that Ashton Jeanty is going to be a superstar by himself. It's just risky to take a running back 6 overall. Like, for example, like the only running back who has more guaranteed dollars right now in the NFL is Saquon Barkley. He's already going to be top 10 in compensation per year. So the pressure's on Ashton Jeanty to he literally needs to be like a top 3 running back in the NFL to justify this draft pick. I think he's got the talent to come close to that or actually make that tier, but the pressure's on. Like, he has to be really good to justify this.
You can tell me if I'm wrong, and I know people really focus in on the money that goes to running backs when they are selecting the top 10. I do believe there's a bit of a cliff between number 5 and number 6, if I'm not mistaken. It's 10.5 down to almost 8.5. So there is about $2 million to $1.5 to $1 million difference, which I think plays a factor again for the process people out there in team building.
Yeah, it matters a little bit, but I think at the end of the day, it's just, would an offensive lineman help this team out more? And it could have Chip Kelly drafted one of his backs then the next day. It's that's going to be the debate. Now, Jeanty, to me, in his own class, to me, in terms of running back talent here.
To me, he is compact Nick Chubb with a passing game element to his repertoire. That's pretty special stuff. And I do want to add with Chip Kelly, this is someone who, had ups and downs during his time as a play caller in the NFL. In 4 seasons, he had offenses that went from 4th to 27th in points scored his final year, but he was super consistent in running the football. I mean, his rushing attempts on offense per game across the league ranked 4th, 7th, 11th, and 5th. So again, even when his offense was the 27th worst, they still ran the ball the 5th most times across the league. And, Geno Smith, Ashton Jeanty, Brock Bowers is a pretty nice, I think, trio to build off of. And let's just go get some speed to open some things up. And Jacoby Myers is just the ever-present Mr. Consistent on top of this. So, we can look in the offensive line, and even their left tackle's not happy because he's not getting paid what he thinks he's owed. And then according to our lads, it's Jordan Meredith at left guard. And then obviously they took Jackson Powers Johnson at center last year, then Dylan Parham at right guard, along with Alex Kappa, and then DJ Glaze, who was a 3rd-round pick last year too. So there's elements to work with, and maybe they ought on to it. I just think Ashton Jeanty is the run stamina that he has to not just break a couple tackles and get a 40-yard gain, but break even more tackles on top of that and create 60-yard touchdowns is a big difference between him and any other back in this class.
Definitely so. Like the calculus for them, it's Tet McMillan and Travion Henderson, or do you want Ashton Jeanty and Jaden Higgins? Like that's the 2-for-2 calculus that they're going to be running here. And obviously you can play the same game with the offensive linemen. So I gave this one a C+ just because it's really rich for a running back here. I trust that Jeanty's going to be good. Ashton Jeanty's an A+ running back. It's just a little bit of the value. And I think like an X wide receiver, a guard that can fill in for Colton Miller long-term at left tackle. Like those guys are harder to find than a running back, but Jeanty's the truth.
Yeah. And Tom Brady, who's a part of the team, has played in offenses that have backs that they spent early ones on with like Lawrence Maroney, and then super late ones on too. And they've all been successful. And then Spytek just came from, Tampa Bay, where they've only spent basically late round picks on running backs. Yeah. And so something, it was either Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly, something drew them, or just Ashton Jeanty's tape to make this probably the film. Okay. Number 7. God, this is going to last just as long as the actual NFL draft. Armand Membou, the pick at number 7 to the New York Jets. They needed to fill in a starter at right tackle, and they filled in with the best right tackle in this draft.
Yeah, this is like a simple A to me in terms of the grade. He was my 4th overall player. He's a perfect fit for what the Jets are doing. They needed a Morgan Moses replacement, Armand Membou. He played all of the guys that went today at edge rusher, and nobody beat him. And he's still super young. There's some technical stuff that he has to improve here, but he's got all the freakazoid athletic traits. And if you're looking at Aaron Glenn, what he just saw with Penei Sewell is way more polished, but Membou and Sewell have very similar athletic traits. So I'm going to see what this Jets offense is going to look like going into this year and beyond. And like if Justin Fields has any chance of turning into a franchise quarterback, he has to be protected, because him under pressure is like brutal to watch. And the only way to prevent that from happening is to draft one of these right tackles early.
Yeah, they were mentioned with Kelvin Banks. They were mentioned with Armand Membou. They were also mentioned with tight ends. And I would have preferred to go with an offensive tackle here. Yep. I mean, they've invested so much in the offensive line. And look, Justin Fields might not be it, or he could be it. I just think they're going to run the football a lot with one of the most athletic quarterbacks in the league. I know Breece Hall, and maybe on their end, they're not thrilled with that relationship at this moment. His name is apparently being mentioned in trade circles. I think Josina Anderson reported that, if I'm not mistaken. But they also have, 2 other running backs that they drafted last year that showed some promise too. They're just going to run the heck out of the football with all this offensive line investment, and that's going to be the foundation of the offense. And Armand Membou features heavily in that, and he's going to be a prominent figure on that right side for sure. Because, for left tackles, there used to be like this massive divide between the importance of left tackle and right tackle. No more, because right tackles just as frequently line up against prominent and powerful edge rushers too.
Yep. Yeah, they ran behind him specifically. You can get him out in space, and you can just down block. He is a treat to watch. I think he was my favorite player to watch on tape when I was going through my top 100.
All right, pick number 8, the Carolina Panthers. T-Mac, Tetaroa, McMillan. We talked about this potential in our mock draft video.
Yep.
The lines were drawn on the board. The dots were connected. Oh, I mean, people were down on the process of Tetaroa McMillan from maybe an attitude standpoint, a effort standpoint. But yours truly, Brennan Carroll, on that Jedfish staff at the University of Arizona in 2023 when Tetaroa McMillan was at his best. His father, Pete Carroll, Dave Canales' mentor. He also used to work with Dave Canales in Seattle, Brennan, and Nathan Carroll on the Panther staff this past season. They went up post-draft, Hayden, and said that Tetaroa McMillan was their number 1 target this entire time. He and Bryce Young had already thrown together in California just a few days or weeks ago. And apparently, my guy, Bryce Young, pounded the table for your guy, Tetaroa McMillan. So, Hayden,
Yeah.
on a weekly basis, you can no longer be hating on this team, no longer be hating on this offense. You and I are brothers in arms together for the Carolina Panthers.
I'm very excited to join you here. I gave this one an A. He was my 5th overall player in this draft class. It's hard to find X receivers that are 6'4" that could sink their hips. It's simple as that. And going back to the Bryce Young connection, he went to Mater Dei and Tet went to Servite. Those are like the 2 private schools up the street from me.
Yep.
Like those are like these guys. I have some connections to Southern California. I think that he was phenomenal at Arizona, and I thought that he was one of the more overthought players in this draft class. And I'm going to guess that Bryce is going to play better when he has a ball winner down the field and over the middle in Tet. And I think that we're going to look back at that stupid vlog when he was about 19 years old and probably had no idea where that was going to end up, and look back and be like, how stupid that people were caught up on that when he's averaging like 1,200 yards per season.
I think people almost like misidentify what this Panthers offense is. They think Bryce is just kind of like this dink and dunker and lackadaisical arm and can't throw it down the field. Bryce Young was one of the best statistical downfield passers, 20-plus yards in the NFL last season. He was 9th in 20-plus yard attempts last year. This is including the entire season, not just week 8 and beyond. His big-time throw rate on those 20-plus yard passes, 2nd best in the NFL at 35.6%. His adjusted completion rate, 50.9%, 2nd best in the NFL. That was with Xavier Legette dropping passes, David Moore dropping passes, 37-year-old Adam Thielen, and an undrafted free agent in Jalen Coker. So now he gets Tetaroa McMillan, which you and I were not on this camp that, he ran what, a 4.58 or a 4.53 or whatever it was, and that should ding him from being a top 15 pick. One, the bigger guys just didn't run. They just didn't run, including Marvin Harrison Jr. And 2, when you look at the GPS tracking, when you look at him actually, when he catches the football, he shocks defenders after the catch. And the Panthers were actually the worst team in the league last year in yards after the catch per reception. And T-Mac brings that to the table. He can be the X on this team. You can move him inside if you want to. He can be a red zone weapon for this team as well. I'm very, very excited what he does to elevate this offense after they spent nearly every single cent to bring the defense from awful to average.
Yeah, Bryce Young, his best throws are those like touch throws, anticipation throws, like kind of the cover 2
lob it up, back shoulder stuff too. He was doing to Adam Thielen.
And that's where Tet McMillan just was dominant at. I think like he can sink his hips. You could throw the ball up to him. So I do think it's actually a great scheme fit out there. And then you're going to slide Xavier Legette into just kind of like this downfield role, maybe a little manufactured touch, and see where like his best kind of traits line up. But no doubt about it, Tet McMillan and Bryce Young, this is like the best thing that could have happened for Bryce in this draft class.
Yes, 100% agree. And I believe Dane Brugler mentioned that if T-Mac was on the board, the Dallas Cowboys would have selected him at number 12 overall. So sure, I think that Matthew Golden is going to be a good NFL player, but the belief that he was going to be drafted as the wide receiver 1 in this class seems misguided. And it was T-Mac always. And I'm excited. I'm really excited for this combination because it's still some big dudes, Dave Canales was the wide receivers coach in Seattle for a very long time. Brad Igzik who's the OC of the team, a wide receivers coach as well. Like they're going to get their hands and work man to man with Tetaroa McMillan. So I think those questions are going to be answered for this team.
Excited.
Very. Okay. That brings us to number 9 overall, the New Orleans Saints. We go from that to inside the division. They didn't make a trade. That's great. They kept all their picks. That's a W, New Orleans Saints. And they drafted Kelvin Banks for the offensive line after it was previously reported that Ryan Ramczyk is going to retire. That was not a surprise. And that Trevor Penning will not have his 5th-year option picked up.
Yeah, they have just their work cut out and figuring out what this offensive line is going to look like. They have a lot of options with that because Fuaga, their left tackle, played right tackle in college. Kelvin Banks played left tackle in college, but some view him as a guard. And then Trevor Penning, we'll see what happens there. There's a chance that Kelvin Banks ends up being the long-term right tackle. So they can move these guys any which way. They needed to address the offensive line. And I thought Kelvin Banks, like Tet McMillan, was one of the more overthought guys in the process. He checks the length. He checks the athleticism. He has 40+ starts at Texas, early declare, high character guy, one of the highest floor prospects in the entire draft class. And I do think that he has a chance to turn into a left tackle. We'll see what they want to do with Fuaga over there. So like to me, like the only reason why this wasn't an A+, because I had Kelvin Banks as my 7th overall prospect, is I have a really high grade on Jackson Dart. And at some point, you got to figure out the quarterback situation. So we'll see what the Saints do either in this draft class or in the next one.
I mean, and Kellen Moore just coming from, the LA Chargers, and then obviously most recently with the Philadelphia Eagles, O-line investment after O-line investment after O-line investment. I will say, and I was shocked with, it's a different play caller. I was shocked though how good the Saints offense looked in the first 2 weeks of the season last year when their offense was healthy and intact. Now, again, it's very different. That was outside zone and then deep play action shot plays off of that. This one's going to be slightly changed, and most notably, right now, it's not Derek Carr playing quarterback. Big questions there. So for the long term, though, Kellen Moore and beyond, just fixing the offensive line is the right, I think, foundational piece to add.
I think you nailed it. Just not trading up in this draft class was the win. Like they just
Big
stayed
dub.
home, non-controversial pick here, like keep it moving. They kind of needed that.
Good job, Mickey Loomis, for sitting on your hands. But one of your proteges did not do that. We will get to that a bit later on. Could you give your draft grade for Kelvin Banks?
A-. Yeah. Keep it moving. Good pick. It just turns out if you pass on Jackson Dart, I'm going to hold that against you. We'll see what happens with Jackson Dart's profile in the next couple of years.
And could you give it for Tedero McMillan as well? I'm not sure if you did.
That's an A. Straight up A.
Hell yeah, it is.
Straight up A. Best player available.
Yeah, it is. All right. All 4,000 of you joining us right now, hit that subscribe button, leave a thumbs up. We got plenty more to roll, including our tight end one, who was not projected to be tight end one by many people, but our guy, Ben Johnson, drafted him as tight end one. Yes, that's pick 10, the Chicago Bears, and Colston Loveland. First of all, both of these tight ends lined up with, I think, really good play callers, and that's exciting. Colston Loveland first with Ben Johnson. We'll get to Tyler Wharton and Shane Steichen a bit later on. But man, he's just going to put him exactly what he did with Sam Laporta. And it's like a 1-for-1 match. And we should have all seen this coming whenever we mocked them Tyler Warren and just thought, who would be better in that role? And it's the guy with like legit, to me, wide receiver chops in Colston Loveland, who moved to me like a better athlete in Colston Loveland, who also, I think, is a better, if not just the same inline blocker that Tyler Warren is at the same time. I thought he could alter the fabric of an NFL passing offense. He doesn't even have to do that in this offense that already has Rome Odunze and DJ Moore. Just a glorious, sumptuous amount of weapons that Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams have here.
Yeah, this is a phenomenal pick. I gave this one an A. He was my best player available for the Chicago Bears. My 8th overall prospect, and I don't rank tight ends that high. I just thought his tape was phenomenal. He looks like a wide receiver, and like they would play him like not even just in the slot. They'd play him on the outside, and I saw him
isolated.
Just man coverage, just like slant right across your face. Back shoulder fade, catch that. He's 6'6", 250. Like this guy can be an awesome inline blocker eventually. He's really young. The production was there in a miserable Michigan offense. Everyone loves him. He was dealing with a little bit of a shoulder injury, so some people thought that there's a chance he can slide. I don't like to throw out like crazy comps, but I saw like a little bit of Travis Kelce, some TJ Hawkinson in there. I think the world of Colston Loveland, and it's going to make sense. Like you have like the two, DJ Moore and Rome Odunze and Colston Loveland. You don't have to worry about the third wide receiver. You can keep building in the trenches and on defense the rest of the way for Caleb Williams. And now like all those drops over the middle of the field that I watched this last year, like not going to be a problem with Colston.
Yeah, and we don't have athletic testing for him. And again, to me, you need top-tier athletic testing in order to be a top-tier tight end in the NFL. He injured his AC joint in week 3 of last year. He played through it the entire time. He got a checkup and then needed that surgery in January when he didn't think he had to. He was literally this team's offense. I mean, his 56 catches this year and 582 yards made up 30% and 35% of the team's totals. And that was, again, with a destroyed AC joint in his shoulder. He's just a nutso player.
Yep.
And they already have that second tight end on the roster in Cole Kmet that can do the dirty work stuff that allows him in 12 personnel to be the bigger pass catcher. And I mean, I know Bears fans love Cole Kmet and get mad when people put down Cole Kmet. Ben Johnson just did a little bit because Colston Loveland should play above him in every single set.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, they just moved totally different. Yeah, Colston Loveland, he looks like a wide receiver out there, and he's 6'6".
Yes. Yeah, it's just crazy how he moves. And they have draft picks tomorrow. They did not trade up from the 10th overall pick. So add a running back to this or two, and you get your thunder and lightning backs on top of it.
Imagine they just take both Ohio State guys at 39 and 41 and just like keep it moving, you know? How funny would that be?
I mean, I'm really excited because, again, this is one of the organizations that fixed their offensive line in free agency like the Jacksonville Jaguars did, and now they continue just to add more pass catchers on top of it. Makes total sense.
Jeanty would have been really fun with the Chicago Bears, and I was rooting for that. I grade this selection better than trading up for Jeanty, like no question about it.
Well, okay. San Francisco 49ers, I'm not going to say we get into a lull here, but we kind of get into a lull here. The 49ers took the first edge rusher since Abdul Carter at the number 3 overall pick. So they had their selection of all of them. It could have been Jalen Walker. It could have been James Pierce. It could have been a whole bunch of other names. And instead, they went with a massive body who presses from the outside in Mykel Williams. This lines up, I think, for a number of reasons, Hayden. I always, since the Jadeveon Clowney draft, one of my first articles at Roto World was titled "Disruption is Production," because people got on him for not having sack totals. And it's mainly because he was pushing the pocket and no one was there to clean it up. Mykel Williams is going to push the pocket, and Nick Bosa is going to be able to clean it up from the opposite side and vice versa. And I think that's why he's the selection here with Robert Saleh and Ko Saric as the defensive line coach.
Yeah, they said the number one trait they're looking for is setting the edge. That's what Mykel Williams did. He has got these humongous arms and he uses it. He's also got size. I was kind of making fun of it like before this. Everyone like kept talking about how good this edge rushing class, and like it's kind of a Mickey Mouse class. Like a lot of these guys like 240, 245 pounds, and then like he's the one that kind of stands out, him and Shemar Stewart. So I was not surprised that he went earlier than expected. Really young, and there's a chance he's going to rush a little bit more outside than he did at Georgia, and some of his production is going to go up. He's also playing through a pretty severe ankle sprain out there, but he was dominant early on in his career, played at Georgia as an 18-year-old, even sacked CJ Stroud way back then in the college football playoff. So I really like this pick. It probably would have been the pick I would have selected as well.
Yeah, and super young, even when he was, as a true freshman. I think he was beating up on Paris Johnson of Ohio State, who's turned into a really good left tackle in the NFL. So the 4-eye stuff that Georgia asked him to do is not very fair. It's, again, setting the edge and playing on the inside of the outside blocker. That would lead to production stuff. Arguably his best football is ahead of him, and I would expect the 49ers to be able to pull it out. What grade did you give Mykel Williams and the San Francisco 49ers?
It was an A. If you're the best player available.
Wow.
I mean, you're looking at the options. He's my best player available. What else am I supposed to say?
Good for you. No, I like it. And people might say that you are being a soft grader. That is not the case where we jump to now. And that is the Dallas Cowboys at pick number 12, taking Alabama guard Tyler Booker. Matthew Golden was on the board. We all expected him to be the pick here. We all got tunnel vision. And when it becomes chalk and consensus like that, we should probably take a step back and realize that most certainly isn't going to happen. The positives for Tyler Booker and how he is billed is that he was the offensive version of Will Anderson, meaning that he lifts up the room. He's a great leader around his positional group. Bursts of energy, right? Exactly what you want. There are negatives to his game. We can get into that. What does he bring to the Dallas Cowboys here?
I mean, you saw it. If you guys are watching him on the stage, he just looks like the absolute man out there. Yeah, and he's super physically dominant. He's not going to fit the wide zone scheme, but I think he's actually going to be like this kind of ironic. I think he might be better in pass protection because he is just so big and girthy that it's like hard to get around him. I actually saw some struggles in the ground game when he was trying to reach some guys out in space, and that's where like the athleticism was like really bad. And I think if you look at relative athletic score, I believe he's going to be like the least athletic first round player in like the last couple drafts. And I saw that
selected
on tape.
For first round.
Yeah. I just saw that on tape too much. So I ranked him much further down than this. So I did give them a pretty rough grade here, but they did have a guard spot. They've hit on these guard prospects routinely in Dallas. So maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. I thought that I saw defenders kind of cut in front of his face too much in the ground game.
Yeah. I mean, oftentimes people view these interior offensive linemen as bad athletes. The best ones are great athletes. You can look up the 20-yard short shuttle and the list if you want to check that out. They have to be. So often it's the lateral movement, and the more athletic the pass rushers get, the more athletic the offensive linemen have to get. And Tyler Booker's just not that. He had a horrible 10-yard split, and then at his pro day, only ran the 10-yard and not the 40, so he could improve just the 10-yard, which is kind of faking the 10-yard. Yeah. No, it did. It improved, but I mean, you know, context is key. I think if you're only running for 10 yards, and not 40, then and you're being compared to everyone else around. Anyways, he's never going to have to do that again. The Cowboys are beefy up front now. Okay. Tyler Smith, left guard, over 300 pounds. Cooper Beebe, center, over 330 pounds. I mean, 330, and Tyler Booker is what, almost 330 himself, too?
Yeah, there are some times where he's looked like he's 340.
So, I mean, these are just massive, massive humans. We need them to now invest in a running back behind this. It, correct. To me, cannot be Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders entering the start of the 2025 season. And plus, now your receivers that are complementing CeeDee Lamb are Jonathan Mingo and Jalen Tolbert. That is just not enough for Dak Prescott at this moment. But as we have seen, all these teams are building out the fabric of the pocket, the interior of the pocket, and they are trying to do that here. And so I do credit them with that vision, at least.
Yeah. Consensus rankings had him at 31st overall. So I'm not like on an island here. I am 39th overall. Consensus is at 31st. They drafted him at 12th. So I gave him a D, but he's a good player. It's just like 12th overall. There were some guys available, I thought.
There were some dudes, and we'll get into some of those dudes here in a moment. All right, that brings us to the Miami Dolphins at pick number 12. I believe they selected Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. Your guy, one of your favorite players in the draft. Didn't quite test as the athlete that we were hoping for, but still, he offers legit pass rush and movement juice from a 1-2-3 technique wherever you want to play him. And after losing Christian Wilkins, and as you and I talked about over and over and over again, it was Zach Sealer and no one else on this Miami Dolphins defensive line. And now they have another body to play up there.
Immediately one of the best run defenders in the NFL. And I think that there's a little bit of pass rush juice that's kind of just waiting for him to develop. Super young, productive, could play a bunch of snaps for them. I think the best of this archetype is Dexter Lawrence, who's like basically like a defensive player of the year. He's got a ways to go to get there, but he does have the athletic traits to make it happen with the right coaching. So I understand this one just because they did not have defensive interior players. I ranked him 17th overall. Consensus rankings were at 23rd overall. So it's a little bit of a reach, but as we saw, the cornerbacks situation, which they definitely needed with Jalen Ramsey trade, those guys didn't go quite as early as people thought. So maybe the evaluations on Will Johnson and Jedi Barron and the safeties with Nick Emanwari and Malachi Stark, like those guys were just like never in play at 13th overall.
Right. We'll get to it with the Broncos, but apparently the Broncos went up to the podium and said that they expected Jedi Barron to be the pick here for the Miami Dolphins. So they just went the exact opposite and went along the defensive line. Yeah, I mean, they've invested so much in edge. We know about Bradley Chubb. My brain is blanking on the guy that went to Jalen Phillips. Yep. And then obviously Chop Robinson is awesome. Chop Robinson is electric. You couldn't get more different of these two body types, but that's exciting. That's really exciting. And look, despite the weirdness going around with the Miami Dolphins at this moment and Jalen Ramsey and Tyreek Hill and the GM not knowing who the leaders are in his team and then not naming his quarterback when that happened, this defense played at a really high level last year. And it might be able to even take a step forward with Kenneth Grant on the field too.
Yeah. He had a chase down. Like his effort is relentless too. Like he should not be as fast. Yes. I mean, yeah. He'll be chasing down Devon Achane in minicamp.
All right. Indianapolis Colts are up next at pick number 14. They did not need to trade up to make this move. And they go and get Tyler Warren, a consensus pick for them. I have plenty of thoughts here.
Hit me. Go.
Okay. My brain, as you know, in our mock draft, went to, okay, you have to win this year, Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen. You have plenty of pass catchers in Josh Downs, Alec Pierce / Adonai Mitchell, and Michael Pittman Jr. You have a running back, and all that type of stuff. You don't necessarily have a starting right guard. That would help more often. But this team that has like taken middling shots at the tight end position, Mo Alley Cox, Will Mallory, Jelani Woods, Kylan Granson, they almost had to like move and substitute those guys like over and over and over again because like they didn't have one guy that they could just keep on the field in 11 personnel stuff. I'm assuming that is their vision now, that they can just keep everyone on the field that they want to in 11 personnel. They have everything set, and so they can run tempo, they can run hurry up, they can mix and match their not personnel groupings, but formations without actually substituting anyone. And so that just makes maybe even and allows for more creativity from someone like Shane Steichen, who might have been hamstrung in recent years by Gardner Minshew and some of his other pieces due to injuries.
Yeah, it'll also just simplify things for Anthony Richardson if he does win the starting job there. I think that he was kind of overrated as a run blocker. I think that he should easily be their wide tight end and inline guy and survive in 11 personnel too. I think it's a really tough landing spot for him in terms of fantasy value, just because
he's not getting rushing touchdowns.
Definitely not. Yeah, he's like the fifth best guy on the roster for that stuff now. So you can kiss that goodbye. They already had some manufactured touch players on the field, and then they're going to be so run heavy. So pretty brutal spot for Tyler Warren in fantasy. And then I think for the projection, he was number 7 in consensus rankings. I just thought it was a little bit of a projection in terms of how is he winning 5 yards and beyond as a route runner. I think he's fine at it, but I thought that he was a tier below in Colston Loveland. If you start taking away some of the manufactured opportunities, you got to kind of win in like the more traditional sense, and we'll see if he can do that. So there's not like a tight end away. It's like I don't know how this is supposed to like move the needle for me.
Yeah. And again, still need a starting right guard. They might play Goncalves there or at right tackle and then move in Braden Smith, who missed a lot of time last year. And then again, looking beyond this, they only have one edge rusher under contract from 2026 and beyond. And that's the one they took in the first round last year. Now, I don't want to like crush Tyler Warren.
Still good.
He was Penn State's entire offense last year. I just did not view him as a top 10 prospect. I didn't view him as the number 7 overall player in consensus rankings. 14 makes a lot more sense. And I viewed him as the tight end too. And NFL agreed. They drafted him as the tight end too. So Shane Steichen, I think, is a very good play caller. Again, offensive line stuff, quarterback stuff over the last few years has maybe sapped some of his creativity. And now he has to do it. He has to unleash everything he has because it's to save his job heading into 2026.
Yep, and he doesn't know whose quarterback's going to be. Open competition.
Yeah. Okay. The Atlanta Falcons are on the board, and they did not expect Jalen Walker to be available, and so they selected Jalen Walker with the number 15 overall pick. They hadn't drafted a pass rusher or had a 10-sack guy since John Abraham. We've heard that for a long time on the edge. Jalen Walker, is he a fully committed edge rusher, Hayden Winks?
That was my problem when he was like viewed as this like top 10 guy. That's where he was in consensus rankings and all the mock drafts. I had him ranked 16th overall because I'm intrigued by like what Jalen Walker can be, because he is a freak athlete. His motor's awesome. You can use him as a spy. He's great in the chase down. He can play on the backside of runs and chase down running backs. He's also 6'1" with short arms and was like decently productive, but nothing crazy either. So I was always worried that he was just going to go to a team that didn't know how to use him. I think you're going to have to be pretty creative with him. I think it's going to take a little bit of time for him to like fully develop with his pass rush arsenal against NFL tackles that are so athletic. But I do think Raheem Morris is the guy to do that. So I trust Raheem Morris, and I think it makes more sense for him to go in the middle of round 1 than as a top 10 pick. So I thought this pick was totally fine. I gave it an A-. So bravo to the Falcons so far.
Yes. We will come back to them a bit later on. I do want to bring up their defensive coordinator is Jeff Ulbrich. Remember, Raheem Morris does not call plays. He fired his longtime friend in Jimmy Lake last year after that defense was really bad. Jeff Ulbrich comes from the Jets, comes from working with Robert Saleh. They rotate their edge rushers a lot and utilize them in a whole bunch of different ways too. So yeah, and Jalen Walker apparently is like the best teammate of all time on top of it. So like after losing Grady Jarrett, cutting him, and the tenure that he had for basically a decade for this organization being the linchpin of everything, they needed someone to maybe become that next step for them defensively. And apparently Jalen Walker can be that.
I wonder if the other edge rusher they drafted is they're gonna force him to move in with Jalen Walker. It's gonna be like maybe like a babysitting situation.
Yeah, we'll get into that one a bit later on because it might not be as kind. Okay, that brings us to the Arizona Cardinals and maybe the man that had like the biggest variance of where he could be drafted in round one, or maybe not in round one. Daniel Jeremiah didn't even have Walter Nolen in his first round mock draft, but he goes to Arizona Cardinals here at pick number 16. Jonathan Gannon, Philadelphia Eagles guy for a little bit, rotational pass rush, interior pass rushers, maybe some questions about their backgrounds. Walter Nolen had that too. This is just like a great fit.
Yeah, I love this one. They were trying to get Milton Williams, who's like very similar to Walter Nolen, and they just like lost the bidding war. Patriots won that. And ironically, and I think this matters, they signed Calais Campbell, which will probably be his final year. And Calais Campbell, here's how you're going to earn your money this year. You're going to teach Walter Nolen how to kind of just behave and get kind of just lock in, because that to me was the problem with Walter Nolen. Is his best is awesome. He's got an elite first step, and he was actually even decent against the run when he wanted to, but there would be also moments where he would just be completely just like not like a part of the field. So Calais Campbell is just going to have to kind of just like make sure he's in line there. And I think that's going to be one of the building blocks here. But this team like had no pass rush juice.
None last year.
All.
Zero.
So it's like Josh Sweat and like obviously Dalvin and Calais, those guys are good signings, but those are not pass rushers. Like they needed to roll the dice on a pass rusher. And I totally get that.
Yeah. I mean, this is the team that Steve Keim drafted the hybrid edge linebackers over and over and over again, never got the best out of them. And then they had Zach Allen on their roster, didn't get the best out of him. And he goes to Denver and becomes like a force up the middle, rushing the passer. And so in one offseason, they really have tried to completely change that. Bring in Josh Sweat from the Philadelphia Eagles. Like you said, Calais Campbell. And then now having Walter Nolen up front too, gives you some movement capabilities, some rotational pieces, and just interior defensive linemen that have athleticism like this, that can bend, turn the corner, get leverage, all that type of stuff, go straight to my heart. And Walter Nolen really, really does that. So I'm really excited for this fit, and it's exactly what the Cardinals needed.
I gave it a B. He was pretty close. I had him 18th in my rankings. He was 20th in consensus rankings. It's just like, how do you know he's going to lock in here? So we'll see.
Yes. Okay. Next up, that brings us to the Cincinnati Bengals. I brought it up in the mock draft that I didn't get that many right. I think I got like 9 right tonight, maybe. That the Joe Goodberry Brain Trust Collective said that Shemar Stewart was going to be the pick, and Shemar Stewart is the pick. This is a traits-based player, maybe not even disruption that could be production this past season. Just couldn't really like finish off on sacks or tackles for loss or any of that. But again, massive body, brings the athleticism to the table. You pair him with Trey Hendrickson. Murphy hasn't really worked out coming out of Clemson from a few years ago. So it all sounds like Trey Hendrickson is going to stay on this team by reports. But this is like the next phase, the next era of it. Because, man, this team really needed just some juice and some players defensively, because arguably some of the least talented groups other than the Carolina Panthers across the league.
There's some positions that I want production. There's some positions I want trades. Edge rusher is a position where I want the trades. So I rank, obviously you're just completely rolling the dice. Some of these absolutely hit. Some of these guys phase out. He was 15th in my rankings. He goes 17th overall. I gave him an A-.
Rashawn Gary was somewhat of a similar profile coming out of highly touted recruit, had a ton of athleticism. People knocked him for the lack of production, but I'm with you. This is one of the true one-on-one matchups on an NFL field. And when you have a natural athletic and size advantage, that gives you a natural leg up versus your opposition.
Yeah, I will say like the Trey Hendrickson stuff, like it is odd that like this is the guy that's like demanding a trade and then you immediately draft that position. Like I think the Bengals are definitely fielding phone calls about Trey Hendrickson, especially after this. We'll see what happens there, but this obviously like top of mind.
What grade did you give this?
This is an A-. You got to roll the dice here, but he was like the best player available if you're removing the Mike Green from this, who's still waiting.
And I wouldn't be surprised if they go after offensive line in round 2 just to fix one of those spots. as well. That brings us now to the Seahawks at number 18 overall. Speaking of offensive line, John Schneider finally did it. For years, he had said the rest of the league has been overdrafting and overspending on interior offensive linemen. He let Damian Lewis go to the Panthers. He didn't pay Will Fries and give him a contract. Tevin Jenkins, the same exact thing. And so he goes out there and spends the number 18 overall pick on FCS North Dakota State's Gray Zabel. Your thoughts?
I think it's just ironic that thought like other teams were overspending, and then they take the player that's number 33 in consensus rankings. He was my personal 38th.
Had to
player.
Do it.
They kind of backed themselves into a corner. And then what happens then? And then you have to be the one reaching. So I just thought it was ironic. He's a great athlete, primarily played left tackle. He's going to play guard for them, obviously. A little bit nervous just because he's got short arms too. And I did think at times that he got pushed back a little bit more than I would like to for FCS competition, but everyone loves this guy. It was a team need, so you got to give him some credit here. But it was a reach versus for pretty much everybody. People were expecting this just because it was such an obvious need. But
right.
That's bad team building to me. When you go into a draft and everyone knows you have to kind of reach on a position, that's not the most ideal way to handle things.
Yeah, according to our lads, their offensive line right now is Charles Cross, who I think is a very good player. Then Gray Zabel at left guard. Then Oluwatimi, who's been an absolute roller coaster at center. Anthony Bradford has been nothing, and Christian Haynes has been an awful right guard pick so far. And then Abe Lucas, who had a great rookie season, kind of out of nowhere as a third-round pick, and then was injured for the vast majority of time over kind of the last, I think, 2 years. So they have to keep going with this. I will add, you kind of have to do this with Sam Darnold, This is the Minnesota Vikings ever since, said we could either build up our interior offensive line or pay Sam Darnold. When there's interior disruption for him, this is a guy who loves to climb the pocket and unleash ropes down the field, lasers down the field. And so you have to have that fabric of the pocket. You have to have that guard center guard combo. And they simply didn't.
Yeah.
So
and I don't think they're done.
I'm not as against as drafting for need. I know all these teams say we took best player available, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, that's why 90% of these players are going to start or be backups or starters in the future at positions of need. You draft for need all the time.
Yeah, it was just a tough spot. There was just not a guard available. The Dolphins, I'm sure, wanted a guard and stuff this kind of range. There was not somebody that plugs into guard. Once the tackles went, it was just kind of late round one was kind of where we thought the guards were going to go. And then if you're picking at 18, what are you going to do?
Yeah, again, the best player available. I'm not saying this for you, but what player have we discussed so far that they aren't immediately going to help the team or start?
Yeah.
Zero.
Yeah.
So kind of have to here. Yeah. Imagine that. Now,
until now,
I say that, hold that thought, because now we go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking Emeka Egbuka with the 19th overall pick. I don't know what the odds were of the Buccaneers selecting a wide receiver in the first round. I bet they were very, very long just because of the believed breakout of Jalen McMillan to go along with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. But man, this just solidified this is an assortment of riches that Baker Mayfield has, and the Grizzman Grizzard, the new play caller of the Buccaneers. Okay, let's just list them. Yeah. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Emeka Egbuka, Cade Otton, Bucky Irving, Rashad White, Jalen McMillan, and then Baker Mayfield doing his best to run around with his head cut off like a chicken and unleash bombs down the field. That's a pretty cool offense.
It is really cool. It does make me a little bit nervous about where Chris Godwin is coming back from injury now. They just paid him a bunch of money, so they must have some belief. But he did take a pretty big discount there. That makes me a little bit nervous. Obviously, Mike Evans is getting older now. I had Emeka ranked 13th overall. In this draft class, I know exactly what the hell I'm getting with him. He's going to be awesome. They definitely care about character down there as well. And he's everything that you're looking for, a modern slot plus wide receiver, super tough as well. So all that stuff makes sense. It's just okay, who's not playing? And it's going to be Jalen McMillan, who was
Correct.
Fine enough. He was a good third round pick, but
he had some really sweet schemed up passes and receptions from Liam Cohen.
Yeah, Emeka just blows him out. So the Jalen McMillan stuff it's going to be pretty much over. But maybe we can read into this, and we're going to have to when we do our wide receiver rankings next week. Am I supposed to be looking at this a pretty negative thing for Chris Godwin coming back, or for Mike Evans? What am I supposed to do here?
I think it's just Jason Light, one who not going to say underappreciated, but should probably be listed among the top 5 general managers in the league, realizing that you can't sign wide receivers. You can't trade for wide receivers.
Yep.
You can only draft wide receivers. And I'm sure that their grade, when I can't wait to go and listen to the press conference, they probably were like, yeah, we had a top 10, top 15 grade on a Emeka Egbuka. I wouldn't be surprised if they said he was the wide receiver 1 in this class. And, you know, I would buy that from certain people. I mean, his athleticism was way more than I was expecting, testing-wise, at 6'1", 202. I mean, 82nd percentile shuttle, 76th percentile vert, a 1.5010, 4.48. And we just know he's like a true professional already on the field when it comes to those inside breaking routes, when it comes to crossing routes. And then you want him to crack down on the linebacker in duo or on toss plays, or you want him to be a lead blocker like he was against Michigan State, working around in motion. He has that in his back pocket. So, Emeka Egbuka might not see as many targets we were expecting during his rookie year, but this is just like a sweet offense. We didn't even mention the offensive line. That's also stacked and one of the best units in the league too.
Yeah, everyone basically returned. That was a starter in this offense from last year, except the play caller. I think it's like a underlying like storyline here is there's a lot of really bad fantasy football landing spots, like the rookies coming in, and also what that means for the veterans, where it's kind of like, damn it, like we just like kind of lost a bunch of value in fantasy. So I think next week's ranking shows are going to be pretty important.
Yep. That means all 3,900 of you watching at this very moment need to hit that subscribe button. We know you play in your fantasy league. We know sometimes you wait until August or September to get your research. No, we've got content for you all summer long, and that starts next week with daily fantasy rankings at every single position, along with dynasty rankings from yours truly, I think maybe on Monday or Tuesday for your rookie drafts.
Let's get it.
Okay. Let's go to the Denver Broncos. You know, they already had a pretty good defensive back room, man. Already pretty good. Patrick Surtain, arguably the best corner in the league. And then Riley Moss on the opposite side. And then now you add Jedi Barron, who has played outside during his Texas career, also played inside, a movable piece.
Yep.
That's a pretty significant trio at cornerback for this Broncos defense.
Yeah, this would be scary hours for me. He's going to play the slot. That was their kind of last piece. They actually, their current slot player was actually, I thought, pretty decent. But yeah, with Moss as a 2, Surtain locking everybody down, like truly locking everybody down. Then Jedi Barron working over the middle, super physical on top of it. So he's got speed, he's got physicality. Now he's got a little bit shorter arms here, but he made a ton of tackles and lined up everywhere, and everyone loves him. So I see how this does make sense there. I like this pick more than going with a running back. And they had their choices between Henderson and Hampton, and they went with, like, to me, like closer to like a best available player at a more premium position. So totally understand this one.
Can I play a moment of Brett Coleman's interview with him? Would you mind that?
Sure, go for it.
Because it was fantastic.
Kind of playing like a loose bail technique when you're on the outside. Yeah. And the way that you kind of plant and drive, it's different than a lot of other DBs that play off coverage, you know, that classic T-step. You kind of almost like have your eyes on the quarterback and the receivers, like that sidestep drive. Like, how did you develop that technique for kind of driving on stuff underneath?
Coach Joseph, my corner coach, he taught me that. He taught me how to read red light. He taught me how to read the quarterback's drop, the quarterback's progression, the O-line, if they're breaking the glass, if they're staying high. He taught me a lot of those things. And then also, you have to understand, I used to box 6th, 7th grade, so just understanding, you see a lot of things faster in your periphery view. So if I can see the receiver right there and I can still have vision on the quarterback, I can see a lot of things. So people don't understand that, and then you could just you're open up to guard a lot of things in a shuffle and things like that. Rather than kind of backpedaling, you're just kind of closing yourself to the quarterback. Now you can't see. So
you know, I think he's going to fit right in that defensive back room.
Yeah, he's an owl. He can see everywhere. Yeah, that would help.
Shout out Brett Coleman. He and EJ do some awesome work over on the Bootleg YouTube channel. So go and check them out. I'm sure they have a ton of draft content. I think they're streaming every single day of draft weekend as well. So go and subscribe to their channel as well. Okay. That brings us to the Pittsburgh Steelers at pick number 21. You know, Derek Harmon was the selection, interior defensive lineman out of Oregon. Someone that I think Brian Broaddus reported had some medical issues with his knees with other teams. The Steelers have shown that has not been a red flag to them. Last year, Peyton Wilson, for example, Took him in the middle rounds, became a starting linebacker for him when he was off other teams' boards. Derek Harmon on the field, Hayden, one of your favorite players in this draft. Talk us through it.
Yeah, they line him up everywhere. He just checks a bunch of boxes, medicals aside. Like, he's productive. He's got like legit NFL size. He's got good motor, good against the run. And to me, he's just like what Hayward was early on in his career. And that's going to be the replacement here. So I think that Derek Harmon, without that injury, he was like a top 10 player for me, was my defensive tackle one in the class, super high floor player, assuming the shoulder injury is going to check out with them. But they felt fine enough to take him over the quarterbacks. Like, to me, as much as I love Derek Harmon, like, the big takeaway from this pick is like, they must have some assurances from Rodgers to like skip over the quarterbacks, or they actually hated Jackson Dart. We heard a report that they wanted to go defensive line, or they had a first round grade on Jackson Dart. So pressure's on to get Aaron Rodgers in the building.
Yeah, definitely. This is playing next to Cameron Hayward, which Javon Hargrave previously did for them as well. And then the future beyond Cameron Hayward at the same time. Yeah, I mean, really good player, gets after it up the field, and just kind of embodies, I think, the Pittsburgh Steelers mentality. But the quarterback question is a big one. Like, the two teams that basically do not have a starter right now, in the New Orleans Saints and the Pittsburgh Steelers, do not have a starter heading into day 2 of the NFL draft.
I know, it's wild. Yeah, I mean, do you think that they have an answer from Rodgers somehow, or do they feel comfortable with like Kirk Cousins or Derek Carr becoming available and they're okay with that? Is it like, we're rolling the dice on a round 3 quarterback and see what happens? Like,
no clue, dude.
Because like the crazy thing about the Steelers is a lot of their best players are old. We just mentioned Hayward, Mika, Watt. Like, these guys are expensive, like not like super old, but these are fairly old players. And we also didn't get an answer about George Pickens today either. So you just traded a second, gave DK Metcalf $150 million. Their starting quarterback right now is Mason Rudolph, unless they know something that we don't.
Yep, this is why we'll do full draft grades once the entire draft is complete. They have a lot of work to do. I mean, even their like second running back spot is
they'll be fine with that. I mean,
I know, but
how
like,
many videos
this is
did we
Pittsburgh.
do of this?
This is Pittsburgh that runs the football a lot, you know?
Yep.
What's your grade for the Pittsburgh Steelers here?
I gave this one a B-, just because if I were them, I would have taken Jackson Dart and see what happened. I thought he would have been a good scheme fit here. I love Derek Harmon, and you're not going to catch me saying anything negative about him. So he'll be a great Steeler.
Could you give your grade for the Broncos just in case we missed it?
Yeah, Broncos, I went with a straight up B.
Okay,
yeah.
There it is. Okay. That brings us to the Los Angeles Chargers at pick number 22. Not a shocker to me or to you that they attacked the running back position, which they really didn't do in last year's draft, and wrote it out with J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, guys that... Huh?
Kimani Vidal, they attacked him in the draft.
Not really. That, you know, Harbaugh's brother had a long time, and Joe Ortiz, and obviously the offensive coordinator knew from his days with the Baltimore Ravens. And now we flip the script, and it's just a massive investment. They already signed Najee Harris in free agency, and here comes Omarion Hampton to run right over him. Your thoughts?
I think Hampton's going to be super successful. It's a good offensive line. You have Justin Herbert. You have Greg Roman. Like, his numbers are going to be great. Please draft him in fantasy. Like, he's going to be a good football player, good offense, all that. They need wide receivers. They need defensive line. Like, look at their defensive line group. Look at their wide receiver group behind Ladd McConkey. It is pretty barren. Like, those positions are much harder to find, and you typically need to have first or second round investments at those positions to move the needle. So, like, this was like a luxury pick, and I'm not sure if the Chargers necessarily like have the roster to like make a luxury pick. So, and then even like consensus rankings, which like don't like really adjust for positional value. He was 27th overall. He was 42nd overall in my rankings. So a little bit out of nowhere, just because I thought they were going to go with a defensive lineman or a Michigan player, but I guess 2 of the 3 were taken.
I liked Omarion Hampton. I didn't have him as running back 2 in this class, but I get it if you want like the foundation back. He is more than that than Trevion Henderson his. And, you know, he gets to run behind Joe Alt. He gets to run behind Rashawn Slater. And, you know, they've kind of reworked the interior, hopefully, a little bit and fix that, because it was a liability last year, too. I am nervous about the pass catcher stuff. I understand QJ went off and had some games last year and caught a bunch of touchdowns, but it's Ladd McConkey and literally everyone else. You even lost Josh Palmer. So, like Matthew Golden was still available at this point and might not have been the perfect player because, he might lack some size, but you pick the running back over the wide receiver. I just think they're going to
who's their second best
give him the football a lot.
Lineman?
Give him the football a lot.
Yeah, behind Khalil Mack, like who's their second best defensive lineman? Like they need tackles and they need edge rushers. Like that to me is where I gave him a tough grade here. I gave him a D. Amari Hampton's better than a D grade. But I mean, we're talking about like in the playoff, like it was just Ladd McConkey, nobody else. And then they couldn't rush the passer enough. And that was with Bosa on the roster. Like, and Khalil Mack is on kind of a 1 year deal. He's old. Like you lost Poona Ford and they were like crying at the podium because they lost their defensive tackle. Like, where are you getting these guys? It has to be these next 3 picks.
Yeah, and just to fast forward through that, like Tyleik Williams, who is mainly like a big, massive run-stuffing defensive tackle after Derek Harmon went off the board, after Kenneth Grant went off the board, was also drafted in round 1. I don't think a lot of people expected Tyleik Williams to be drafted in the first round. So like that type of player, you can get late and get off the street, but like if you want a young version of those interior pieces, those go quickly. Those go fast. It's why Milton Williams, different type of player, but got so much freaking money in free agency after playing about 55% of the snaps, you know?
Yep. Yeah.
So, I didn't know I was going to be the one to cape for Amari and Hampton because, again, I had him as running back 3 in this class, but like they ran so much inside zone and duo that like it gave us a whole bunch of like one-on-one action with Amari and Hampton versus a linebacker or a filling safety. And he just like refused to be tackled. We talked about it in the prospect profile, which if you guys want more, again, hit subscribe. There's 15-minute videos on like every single offensive player we've talked about here already. He like squirmed, he twisted, he's going to get set up for like gnarly hits in the NFL. But again, it's to attack and gain those hidden yards of 4 or 5 too. So in fantasy, you're not going to be talking about Amari and Hampton all summer long.
I think to be very similar to like what Joe Mixon was with the Bengals, and like his numbers were good. Joe Mixon was good. We knew about it. And then like at the same time, you're like, where's all the good defensive players? You're like, oh, well, it's because you drafted Amari and Hampton.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, his body lean and every single part of his game kind of reminded me of DeMarco Murray. And DeMarco Murray had some like real big seasons in the NFL. Okay, speaking of wide receivers, that brings us to the Green Bay Packers, and they did it. They took one in the first round. His name is Matthew Green and Golden. Yes, Texas wide receiver. Some people's wide receiver 1s out there. Daniel Jeremiah, Todd McShay had 4.29 speed clocked at. So we talked about it at length of this offense. They have good wide receivers. Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Romeo Doubs, right now an injured Christian Watson. What does Matthew Golden bring to this team that those guys didn't?
I think he's more reliable than those guys, and I think that there's just more juice than a lot of the guys that you listed. Like he can legit run. I think the more intriguing part of this, like he also has like the athleticism to stop on a dime and come back to the ball, and also you're worried a little bit about the fit because Texas did do a good job of like putting him in good opportunities. But that's what LaFleur does. Like to me, this is like a much better version of what like Jaden Reed was in this offense. He's going to play on the outside. He's not going to be a slot only player like Reed is. And they just needed to get serious. Like there was too many times late in the season, like the Lions game comes to mind, where like they were just like daring these Packers wide receivers to win one-on-one.
To win. Right.
Against press man coverage, and they just couldn't do it. So I like
and it got like condensed because of that, because they couldn't do it.
And with Christian Watson not going to be a part of this football season, like they need somebody to stretch the field, and that's where Jordan Love's at his best, is just like hucking the ball down the field. So I think he's a good fit with Love. Then he's a good fit with LaFleur, who's going to use the motion stuff, like what they had at Texas. So I'm a big fan of this draft pick.
Wow. I first watched Matthew Golden's stuff at the University of Houston in 2023. Didn't wow me. He was almost like mediocre. He was fine there. He actually had a lot of like ball skill issues, which, hey, welcome to Green Bay and this wide receiver core. Then when he joined Steve Sarkisian and the Texas offense, he took a massive step, and that makes sense. You get better coaching, you go to a better program, you take a big leap. And so if I'm selling myself on this, it's, oh, now I'm going to the NFL, which I think is now with a really good play caller too, then maybe there are gears and elements of his game that he hasn't even reached, and there's more to it. And I think part of that is the 4.29 speed that we were all shocked by, because he certainly doesn't seem like he plays that way on the field. And so again, is that an untapped potential thing here too? The other aspect is this is now historic low production for a first-round wide receiver in their best season of college football. He has by far and away the lowest of, I believe, any first-round wide receiver since like the 2018 draft, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So just something to keep in mind. I agree with you, and I love how LaFleur utilizes his motion sets in terms of sharp motions, in terms of full speed motions, all that stuff, to get his wide receivers up to speed, to give them a free release, and to attack defenses. We've seen that with Tutu Atwell. We've seen that with Jaden Reed. He kind of needs to be the guy for that now because he has more speed than anyone else on this team. Yeah. And so he's going to get some, I think, easy receptions for it. And we know Jordan Love has a cannon to hit him down the field too.
Yeah, he'll easily be the wide receiver one on this team as a rookie. And going back to the production, I did think about this after our video. I do wonder if like the transfer guys, like in the era of transfers, like there's going to be a lot more players for the first month or so of the season, like are just like kind of getting like
introduced. He didn't really blow up until the college football playoff.
Yeah, it's like I wonder if like we're going to have to start making some adjustments for guys that like were just getting into the program. So we'll see. He was so good down the stretch, and I just thought that his ability to kind of stop and turn, you saw that in the red area, like on those pylon routes, like you can start seeing this where like he doesn't have like X wide receiver traits, but he ends up being like a de facto number one just because he's got the athletic traits and like just I think some of the route running skills that you're looking for.
Yep. Okay. That does it. What was your grade here for Matthew Golden?
I gave this one an A. Like he was my 15th overall player in this draft class. Not at the best draft class, but premium position, and he's an ascending player to me.
Okay, that brings us to their rivals, their foes. One of them, the Minnesota Vikings. And the Minnesota Vikings continued their trend of the entire offseason and added to their interior offensive line with Donovan Jaxson out of Ohio State. He did fill in as the left tackle this year when Josh Simmons went down. I would expect him to play one of the guard spots. Again, this is a team that basically decided we can either pay Sam Darnold or we can spend that money on both trenches. On offensive line, they brought in Ryan Kelly and they brought in Will Fries, and now they have Donovan Jaxson to start at their other guard spot. And arguably now, they have clear 5 starters up front with Christian Darrisaw at left tackle, and then their right tackle bring Brian O'Neill. That's a nice setup for young, now second-year player J.J. McCarthy.
I think it's like a really high floor prospect and like really showed just like a lot of just like development to just a kick out to left tackle in a dire situation and played really well there. So this is a solid pick for them, a little bit early versus consensus rankings and my own rankings, but like fits a team need. It's a team that does not have many holes on their roster, and I did think that he was right in the mix for like best guard available. So I thought he was like a better guard than Booker was, who was drafted. I had him ranked ahead of Zabel as well. So yeah, they didn't have many holes, and he's going to be a damn good football player.
Yeah. Aaron Jones. And again, let's remember Jordan Mason as their second runner. I think Jordan Mason might be a popular man in our running back rankings next week. He's
already like top 100 in basketball rankings.
Oh, is he? Okay. Well, never mind.
Yeah. I refreshed and I was like looking at the current ADPs. And he's like 104 for Jordan Mason. I was like, all right, you guys, we're not sneaking him by.
Yeah. And look, like Ryan Kelly has been up and down due to injuries over the last couple of years. We know Will Fries missed an extended period of time last year too. So you have to stay healthy with this. You have to stay healthy, but we know that Kevin O'Connell, top 5 schemer in the league.
Yes.
And this could be a really, really fun offense. If J.J. McCarthy hits the ground running, which he did last year in the preseason. I'm excited for the 2025 Minnesota Vikings.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, your grade for Donovan Jaxson.
B-. Yeah, this one. Okay. Keep it moving.
All right. You had to give a B- because I know you're going to give a big one for our next pick. That is Jackson Dart in a trade up with the New York Giants. I'm trying to find, here we go. Bing, bang, boom. There it is, Jackson Dart, and I'll try to get you the compensation on top of it. Giants get pick number 25. Texans receive pick number 34, pick 99, and then a 2026 third-round pick. So very little to move up 9, 10 spots. And they get the quarterback that Brian Daboll was linked to for the last couple of days, last week or so. Your thoughts with Jaxson Dart being a New York Giant?
Yeah, there's Shanes, there's Weisses, there's Judges. There's a bunch of these guys at Ole Miss. There was connections here left and right, and every single insider had Dart going to the Giants. To me, he fits the Brian Daboll type of quarterback a lot better than like Shedeur Sanders would. I think he has underrated traits. Nothing crazy in terms of arm strength, but I thought his accuracy throwing over the middle was superb. Really aggressive in terms of his mindset, maybe too aggressive at times. And then I don't think people paid attention enough of how like athletic of a scrambler he is. We're not talking about Jaden Daniels here, but we're talking about like an above average scrambler. His production and efficiency was off the charts. Obviously, it's like not like the most clean offense in terms of translating this to the NFL stuff, but he was damn good at it. Best in the class in downfield throws, best in the class off of play action, best in the class when you remove the RPOs from this offense. And then to me, he has starter level traits. And I find it ironic that in our video, I comped into like a miniature, like Russell Wilson, like a young Russell Wilson in terms of the aggressiveness down the field and the playmaking juice and a similar body type. And that's going to be the guy that is going to be learning from this year.
Yep. Speaking of, after training for Jaxson Dart, Brian Daboll made it clear in his press conference that Russell Wilson will be the starting quarterback of this team. Still, what an interesting quarterback room. Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, and you and I watched Jaxson Dart in John Gruden's quarterback camp on.
He was good in that.
All of you should go watch it. Yeah, all of you should go watch that. Yeah, I mean, Brian Daboll, one, is going to utilize his athleticism that you mentioned because he did that. I wouldn't put it on the same caliber as Daniel Jones, but you might. And then two, the downfield passing is like a big element here, because that's, I think, what Brian Daboll wants to run and just never has been really able to do it with the quarterbacks at his disposal. And we know that's Russell Wilson's game, are these sideline shots down the field and kind of not work in the middle of the field. Jaxson Dart certainly worked the middle of the field. Comes from an awesome system with Lane Kiffin that, hey, if you got two high shells, we're going to work the middle of the field with the spacing. If you got single high looks, you have ball winners on the outside like Trey Harris to throw the football up to. Trey Harris, handshake, former quarterback, for now Jaxson Dart's wide receiver one in Malik Neighbors. There you go.
It's gonna be really fun to watch here. I think that Russell's gonna start like half the season, then you'll see a little bit of Jaxson Dart down the line. Like, to me, this is like a great calculated decision for the Giants to like just trade up, nothing crazy. And Jaxson Dart goes where like not everything is on the line with him. And I do want to push back on one quick thing with Jaxson Dart is this like Ole Miss offense. Like, people like compare it to some of these like other offenses. Like, they were asking him to relentlessly throw the ball downfield. Like his average depth of target was way down the field. Now you can say like some of these guys were wide open. That's definitely true at times, but I think the only reason why Lane Kiffin was throwing the ball down the field is because they trusted Jaxson Dart to make some of those throws over the middle. And he had some of the best wow throws in the class. So I gave this one an A+ in terms of value, but like literally I posted my top 100 and I get feedback of all of the boards that go into these consensus rankings. And I'm the highest person on Jaxson Dart out of anybody in the industry.
You had him as a top 5 prospect. Is that right?
I had him 6th overall. So, I think that there's more tools here to work with than a lot of people are expecting. So I'll take the other side. I'm sure everyone else is like giving them Fs. I'll give them an A.
Well, no, you and I both had Jaxson Dart ranked ahead of Shedeur Sanders, which, by the way, as Tom Pelissero reported, no one did more homework on a prospect in this entire draft than Joe Schoen on Shedeur Sanders. And I don't know if it's telling. That might not be fair. We see teams, pass on prospects all the time that turn out to be great. But them doing this much homework on Stewart and then not taking him, that shows you, to me, that what was true and what was reported, Brian Daboll not being a fan of Shedeur Sanders' game. And when the play caller and the quarterback are not going to be on the same page, and that is just simply not going to work. Now, a couple questions to ask you.
Yeah.
Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen have to win this year or they're going to get fired. So, to me, there's a really strong chance that, Jaxson Dart starts, 6-8 games this year and then goes into year 2 with a new play caller. That happens quite often, but it probably is going to happen with him too. And then we also have a miniature version of the New York Jets here where Joe Schoen's son posts highlights of Jaxson Dart on his Instagram last night, then goes private as soon as he does for the world to know and the world to see. So tighten your ship a little bit here, Joe Schoen.
And,
like even when cameras are not in your draft room for Hard Knocks in the offseason, the word still gets out.
I learned that Jackson Dart went to the same high school as Zach Wilson in Utah. I'm sure right now he's calling Zach Wilson's like, all right, this New York media, like if things aren't going well, like how am I supposed to handle this thing? Yeah, luckily he's got Russell Wilson to kind of hide him for a little bit.
Yeah. And they still got offensive line questions too. You know, Andrew Thomas is an amazing left tackle, but as we always say, like when he goes down, the ship kind of takes on top of it. So just something to keep in mind. And I'm just hoping my guy Tyrone Tracy gets to last for the entire NFL draft. Okay, so we had back-to-back trade-ups. That was one for the New York Giants. I think that compensation is like incredibly fair. Again, the Houston Texans drop back. They are no longer in round one. They drop and get, you know, the 34th pick, which is in the second round, which they already had. No, they didn't have a second round selection because I believe they traded that for Stephon Diggs, if I'm not mistaken. And then the 99th pick and then a 2026 third. I mentioned that because that takes us to the Atlanta Falcons, who move back up into round one for James Pierce, another edge rusher, this time out of the University of Tennessee. This compensation, to flatly put it, is ludicrous and outrageous. The Falcons traded pick 46, 242, and their 2026 first round pick. And in return, they got the picks 26 and 101. That is so much compensation for a guy with question marks. Now, from the Falcons' end, as Terry Fontenot put it, he believes, and I'll throw up the quote from Taryn Walk on Twitter, said, on whether trading next year's first round pick was a difficult decision to get edge James Pierce. At some point, quote, you have to look at, okay, who is the player and is it worth it? When you have the conviction and belief in the player, that's when you do it. Terry Fontenot, coming from the Mickey Loomis tree, the Saints have made crazy trades of future draft capital over and over and over again. By all accounts, James Pierce was in consideration for the number 15 overall pick. And then they make this move to trade away next year's first. That's, again, preposterous, in my opinion.
Yes, it's idiotic. Terry Fontenot is like firmly on my radar. He's been on my radar before this, but the reason why, and like if you just like put in all these draft picks in like the trade chart, it's already swinging towards the Rams. But the big thing to me is that next year's first, there's so much uncertainty with the Falcons last year because you don't know what Michael Penix is. You might be hopeful. He might be good. He was good in the one little stint that we had, but it was one game. And he was also like not this consensus like first round pick. If he stinks next year, which like could happen, I'm not saying it
or
will,
gets injured. He has gotten injured in his history.
100%. Or if the defense stinks and like your skill guys don't live up to the hype, and this turns into the 6th overall pick next year, this is a disaster. This is like the worst process that you can pick. And by the way, they're talking about when you have conviction and belief in the player, the rest of the league said no. The reason why James Pierce was available is not because his on-field stuff. His on-field stuff, like he had like a 24% pressure rate. His first step is elite. The only reason why he's available this late is because there was a lack of conviction in this player. So to me, this is like way, way, way too much overconfidence in your just like beliefs and like finding out who's a good guy and who's a bad guy. And also like your football evaluations on Michael Penix. He might be good. And if he stinks, guess what? You're going to be completely fired. And maybe he already should have been from how the last couple of off seasons have gone.
Definitely on the radar. I mean, this is just back-to-back off seasons with highly questionable moves in terms of ones that are linked and paired together. They could have easily just said, oh, we didn't expect Jalen Walker to be there. There's the edge rusher. We can exit with that. We've invested in that. They just got super greedy. Like the Michael Penix selection by itself at number 8 overall last year, no issues. Then pairing that though with Kirk Cousins is just a total loss of capital, a total loss. Yes. And he's still on the roster and has a no trade clause, and you can't get anything for him unless you might in the future. And it's going to be very little, and you're going to have to eat a bunch of that salary cap. So you're not being able to maximize what this rookie contract does. And then now you're doing this in 2026, which by the way, you just bench Kirk Cousins. So if Michael Penix, again, at Indiana, got injured, if you win 5-6 games next year, and this is a top 5, 10 selection, disaster is the correct word for it.
Yeah, it's a complete disaster. And then let's get back to the football field. Aside from all this stuff,
Yeah, James Pierce.
the two edge rushers you drafted are 243 pounds and 245 pounds. Like these are like more or less situational guys.
And James Pierce is like the most straight line rusher, and he can be good at that.
Yes.
But this is not someone that is a fully fleshed out type of pass rusher that is difficult to find in every single draft class. I think there's a James Pierce in every single draft class, including 2026.
Right. They just drafted his friend in Jalon Walker, who's very similar. Like, who's setting the edge? Like they're like the reason why Mykel works is because you have to set the edge guy, and then your other edge rusher could be more creative. And like I think it's a problem pairing these two guys up together, even when it comes to the football stuff. So like to me, this is like if they would have just walked away with Jalon Walker, I gave him an A, just keep it moving, 2nd round pick, keep it moving. Remember last year, Luke Aurora, the defensive tackle, was ranked way lower than where they drafted him, and he didn't even see the field last year at defensive tackle. They burnt $100 million. The Kyle Pitts selection early, Bijan, the running back early on as well. And like, where are you gonna like find like these corners? They need a linebacker. They need a defensive tackle. Like now you don't have next year's first round. Like where are you filling all these needs?
I mean, it's just quite ludicrous. Okay, we didn't really mention the Texans. We are going to definitely tomorrow and the next day when we go over their whole team. The Rams now are in like a very interesting situation. They used to be in the F them picks territory and way of life. It's almost like the exact opposite now, where we know this is the swan song, the final frontier for Matthew Stafford. And now they've added a 2026 first round pick to maybe then that's when they attack the quarterback position for the future. So it's like they and the Broncos are, or not the Broncos, the Browns are the two teams that now have multiple first round picks, and they're already going to be dueling it out. And, you know, the Rams were able to get theirs after moving out of pick 26 and down to 46 overall.
I can't believe it included the one.
I mean, it's nuts.
I saw the graphic and I was like, James Pierce. Okay, I'm gonna write my notes. And I was like, oh, that says 1. I don't know. Man.
I mean, I truly was at a loss for words.
That's your last 2 drafts. Everyone doing their grades, they don't even know how to grade it because of the other decisions.
Okay, what was speaking of, what was your grade for the move up for James Pierce as the individual and the compensation that they gave up to?
I gave him a D because I think James Pierce is like good, but like the process here was as bad as it gets.
Okay. Malachi Starks to the Baltimore Ravens was next at number 27. This is one that myself and others had thought was likely to happen because Malachi Starks is an intelligent football player coming from a big-time defense. They are kind of reworking some of their secondary pieces. We know that Kyle Hamilton 2 years ago played a lot in the slot. This year they had to force him back into coverage. That changed how successful their defense was. And now you have 2 players who can kind of be not interchangeable, but kind of work off each other and get creative with both. And that's really exciting for this defense.
Yeah, I think he's going to play a lot more in the back half instead of like up on the line. And I think that's where Malachi Starks was at his best. I actually even thought he got a little bit exposed playing some man coverage in the slot. He's not a freak athlete. I think that I would just want to develop his instincts and just have him read things out in the back half of things. And I think that's what's going to be the plan here with Kyle Hamilton as the other safety. So I think team fit wise, it makes a ton of sense for them. I was just based off of the hype when I was watching him, I just like did not see like enough like difference making plays this last year. And I actually thought that he actually made like too many mistakes. So I had him ranked pretty low in my rankings. But apparently his 2023 tape was better than this last year's tape. And at the end of the day, you're talking about a 21-year-old 3-year starter under Kirby. Like
smart.
Those guys are just going to be pretty good.
Yeah. And I know his athletic testing didn't match what people were expecting, but as Daniel Jeremiah put it, he just crushed every single meeting that he had. And by the way, when you hear Daniel Jeremiah say that about a prospect, you probably want to link them to the Baltimore Ravens. This is an organization that he knows very, very well. So they might be interested in those types of players. Okay. What grade did you give Malachi Starks?
I gave him a C, but Other people will give them a higher grade. Like in consensus rankings, he was 16th overall. Item was a second round pick. So I'm on an island.
I just want to discuss. Oh, I should pull this down. I just want to discuss like the roller coaster that this Ravens defense had last year. Remember, they lost Mike McDonald. Their defense for the first bit of the season was like really down. Yeah. But then again, moving around Kyle Hamilton like totally changed it for the final 8+ games plus the playoffs. And so if they can hit the ground running now from week 1 with Zach Orr calling the plays with Malachi Starks involved, I am certainly all for that. Okay. We were expecting the Detroit Lions to add a defensive lineman. They had a big one. And Tyleik Williams from Ohio State, big time programs. They like that. This isn't necessarily an edge rusher or purely a pass rusher. It's more of hefty fortitude up the middle to pair with Ali McNeil and a few other pieces that they have. But man, they've drafted a whole bunch of beefy bodies on the offensive line. And now they're seemingly adding those pieces on the defensive line too.
Is one of those guys when you're watching film, you can watch about 2 games of Tyleik Williams. You're like, I know exactly what I'm getting here. Like on to the next one. He's a stud. He's not somebody I had like in my top like 35 players who I thought was like going to go round 1. So a little bit of surprise there, but the fit here like makes it's textbook. Like this is just super physical. Allow Aiden Hutchinson to win on the edge. Allow Ali McNeil to have some one-on-one opportunities. This is like copy paste. You know exactly what you're getting here. Did not expect him to go round 1, but this is when you're talking about like there was not like 20 first round picks. Like I'm sure the Lions were saying that, and like he's a second round pick, and we know exactly what we're getting, and it fits a need.
Totally agree with all that. Again, they still have DJ Reader on defense, massive run stuffer. They brought in Roy Lopez to do somewhat of the similar stuff. And then obviously Ali McNeil was simply fantastic when healthy this past season. Now you have Tyleik Williams to rotate in there along with Levi Onwuzurike. Still hoping that like they can get one more guy to push the pocket from the opposite side from Aiden Hutchinson, but maybe they do that in their future too. So yeah, we'll see. Who's to question Brad Holmes at this moment? Who is to question it?
He's on the heater.
He's on the absolute heater, my guy. All right, we'll keep it moving. What grade did you give Tyleik Williams?
I gave like a C+, like just because a little bit of a reach, but like for them, I get it.
Yeah, Brad Holmes is gonna watch this.
Yeah,
like Hayden Winks in 3 years. I told you so. I told you so. Okay, that brings us to the Washington Commanders, who also continue their streak of changes along their offensive line this offseason and brought in Josh Connerly of Oregon. This is fascinating because Connerly, I think, only a left tackle at Oregon, and we know they just made the move for Laramie Tunsil. Some very smart people that I follow that know offensive line stuff way better than me mentioned in recent days that they thought he could play guard, and I would assume that that's where he is going to play, in that guard spot next to Laramie Tunsil. Now, the only change in that is Sam Cosmi also plays one of their guard spots, and then Brandon Coleman, who was, I believe, their starter at left tackle last year, was going to play in one of the guard spots too. So I'm not going to say this is an assortment of riches, but man, they made chicken salad out of chicken liver last year. You know, their position coach was simply fantastic. And now they have like legit pieces to go along with Sam Cosmi, who's a really, really good player. So I know he finished the season injured last year, but this is really exciting because it brings probably their rushing talent up a notch too, in terms of rushing success. And then we know what they did in pass protection last year too.
I'm going to get to plays right tackle for them. I saw him more as a tackle, like body type wise. Like the knock on him is that he was just like not physically strong enough yet. He's really young, and the athletic traits and the length and stuff is all there. So to me, he's like more of a developmental, like fringe round 1 tackle prospect who's going to kick over to the right side most likely here. But at the end of the day, you're just protecting Jaden Daniels. This is a premium position. He checks a lot of boxes. He was my 27th overall player. They got him a couple spots underneath that. So like, to me, this is like a B+, and you can call it an A-. I thought this like pick made a ton of sense. They just have to address some of the defensive issues that they have on day 2.
Yeah. He has played 3 career snaps at left guard, 3 career snaps at right guard, and 2 career snaps at right tackle. So it's going to be a whole new language that Josh Connerly is going to learn no matter where he plays.
They love those 2 snaps at right tackle. the best snaps you've ever seen.
Did you say your grade here for Connerly?
B+. Yeah.
Okay.
Really liked it.
I mean, just imagine what this team can do with an actual talented offensive line. And they played like a talented offensive line last year, which is the crazy part. Okay, that brings us just a few picks left. By the way, if you're still around here, man, 3,400 still live here at a cool 1:45 Eastern time. Absolute sickos. Hit that subscribe button. Please do it right now. Leave a thumbs up. We've got so much more content coming at you, including tomorrow in less than 12 hours. We'll have a second round mock draft. Okay, Maxwell Hairston, Buffalo Bills selection at number 30 overall. I thought Maxwell Hairston could be a pick for the Green Bay Packers. He was selected in round 1 over Will Johnson. Fast corner. And I mean, this Bills team has taken some developmental corners in the past. I'm looking at you, Kyrie Elam. That didn't work out. And they still needed a corner to start across from Christian Benford.
Yeah, I mean, just huge shout out to me. I said that he would be the cornerback 2, and the odds for that were at plus 2,200, right? Then we get a big cash out there. So that's hopefully you guys were able to.
Unless they count Travis Hunter as a corner.
Oh, I mean, give me a break. He's playing wide receiver. I'll go fight somebody over this. And also for Maxwell Harris, while we're on it, before we get to the football player. Who was better at the podium and just like taking it in? Like great, this dude had, I mean, he had so much aura. I loved Maxwell Hairston. I actually really liked his film as well. It's just not a lot of man coverage snaps. And he's also really tiny. So like there's a little bit of projection that happens. But in this offense, they don't have like sitting there and ask him to play press man coverage. It's just not the Sean McDermott style. So I like the fit. Makes sense. 4-2 guys. Seemed like an awesome guy. Totally won the night to me. Great suit too.
Yeah, I listened to an interview that he did, and he was asked, would he rather play in like 9-degree weather or 20-degree weather? And he said, man, I'm from Michigan. I'm a dog in that cold weather. Let me play there. He was talking about Green Bay at the time, but now he gets to do the exact same thing in Buffalo. So he got his wish. What was your grade here for Maxwell Hairston?
Let's see what it was. I just wanted to share this if we can, my screen. My grade was a B-. I had him ranked 37th overall. I thought he was going to go round 1. But yeah, we did get Jackson Dart, and then we got Maxwell Hairston. Hairston saved the day.
Oh, maybe tomorrow I will post some of my.
It seemed like you did well.
Yeah, my wallet is kind of large.
Good.
As large as my head on the screen. Okay.
Almost 2 o'clock. Let's round this thing up.
The Philadelphia Eagles moved up 1 selection by sending pick 164 to the Kansas City Chiefs. And that 1 pick was to move up for Jahad Campbell. Immediately after this, all Eagles beat writers are like, oh yeah, the Philadelphia Eagles loved Jahad Campbell. He is not like their typical edge rusher, obviously. He certainly blitzes and has brushed the passer in a few situations. But for a team that did invest in linebacker for years and years and years, they uncovered Zach Bond, gave him a massive contract, and now you draft Jahad Campbell at the end of round 1.
I think my only comp for Jahad Campbell was Zach Bond, converted edge rusher to off-ball linebacker, great athlete. Instincts, I think, are there. Just he can read things out. He's great in zone coverage, could play man coverage because he's a good athlete. The only reason why he's available is because of 2 injuries. He has a shoulder injury. I don't think that was like the big deal. Apparently he has like a knee injury that might like kind of like end his career early. It's just one of those things, just going to get worse over time. Well, when you're the Eagles and you're just going to try to win the Super Bowl next year, like, does it really matter if he's going to be playing football or not in 2029, 2030? I don't think they really care about that right now. He's going to start. He's going to be an awesome player. And the only reason
help them win Super Bowls.
Yeah. Next year, next year, he's going to try to help them win a Super Bowl.
Yeah. I am interested to see if he is going to be asked to rush the passer on 3rd down, because, they have lost
stuff. Yeah.
They lost Milton Williams in the interior. They lost Josh Sweat on the outside, lost Brandon Graham on the outside. We know that the free agent that they picked up last year from the Jets was an active player in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Bryce Huff. They have Jalix Hunt. They have a few other pieces too, but like, I do wonder if they're going to get him situationally out there, because they might need to.
And this is also Howie, like, he was relentlessly like building out the trenches and stuff, but like the last couple of years, he's like picking a spot on the
DBs,
actual
linebackers.
and the team needs. Like, it's just, where do I have an opening? And like, I'm just going to fill that. So
yeah,
I like it.
Pretty good future planning by Harry Roseman. Okay, what's your grade here for Jahad Campbell?
This is an A, but this just all comes down to the medicals. But if other teams are worried about the long-term impact and the Eagles are saying we could win a Super Bowl next year and he's going to help us, like, benefit of the doubt.
All right. That means we close it out after these two teams did a deal with, speaking of medicals, Josh Simmons, who on tape, arguably top 2 tackle in this class. And if he is healthy, coming off a patella injury to his knee, if healthy, this is like an absolute steal for the Kansas City Chiefs at their left tackle spot. And they haven't been able to say that for like a very, very long time. So if it works, fantastic. If it doesn't, you'll still be searching.
Yeah, I mean, the 32nd overall pick, they've burned those before, like 2 of them in recent years. So we'll see what happens. If he was fully healthy, the Patriots would have selected him at 4th overall. I think that's how good his traits are and how good his tape is. And the good news for them is because they brought in Jalen Smith or Jalen Moore at left tackle, they kind of slow played this with that torn patella. Now, like, we can't just say, oh, he had a little knee injury. Like, this is like the severe knee injury we're talking about. So we'll see what happens. Apparently he's actually moving and stuff already. So I get the dice roll. That's all it is, though.
Totally. Like these are the types of swings you can take. They've taken them at edge rusher too. Still haven't seen that Felix guy play a single snap, I feel like, on defense. And he was at the end of round 1 at the same time. We've seen CEH at the end of round 1. And if you miss, you miss. Good teams compensate for that with other selections and free agent signings. But again, at the same time, like, this is a team that lost Joe Jeanty, was able to re-sign Smith and, try to keep somewhat intact, but their tackle spots are like major questions. And I mean major questions. They gave pretty big money to the 49ers backup left tackle. Their right tackle is not even like perfectly solidified on top of it. So if this works, it's like an pick advantage of like plus 15,
Oh yeah.
It's equal to that. So hopefully it does for him, because that would be fantastic.
Yeah, he's a treat to watch. He's a monster. So yeah, it just comes down to the knee. We'll see.
Okay, closing grade.
That's an A. I mean, he was my 22nd overall player. I have no idea. How am I supposed to rank a player when I don't even know? I barely can spell patella, let alone know what the bounce back rate is on this. So I'm making shit up, but that's what happens when you're on the outside.
Yeah, and we're 2 hours into a show that is going to close out at 2 a.m. Eastern. But this was the right move, man. Even through this, 2 hours in, 120 minutes, 123 minutes in, 3,200 live viewers. Y'all are the best.
Go to bed.
Craigie's Gaming, Bailey, Drood, Eat Panda, Tweezer Jam, Trav Snow. I see all of you. Who Hames? All of you guys. Thank you so much for being in the chat. Zach DuPont, leave a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button. Tomorrow, whenever I wake up and Hayden's up with little baby Kel.
He's right behind this wall. I'm surprised he didn't wake up.
He might be joining us for our 2nd round mock draft ahead of what I think is the best day of the draft.
Yeah.
Round 2, round 3, Fridays. There's going to be so many wide receivers and running backs selected, and quarterbacks. So many.
Yep. 2 notes on there. Make sure to go look at my top 100 rankings. All these guys are going to go tomorrow, and then all these guys are going to get drafted, and we have full video. So go look around our channel. You can just search the player name, and hopefully ours comes up there.
Yep. And once again, you can draft all of these players next week on Underdog. Missouri, I'm talking to you. Texas, I'm talking to you. California, I'm talking to you, and especially Georgia. Draft all these guys on Underdog. It is hot best ball summer. We're making 2 millionaires out there just from playing freaking fantasy football. Don't wait until August or September. Download Underdog for the first time, and new customers deposit and get up to $1,000 in bonus funds. Plus, you'll get some NFL season pick'ems with a bunch of these rookies on top of that very, very soon. All right. Shout out to you, Hayden. Shout out to you, Producer Weaves, and shout out to the chat. We appreciate you. Up the Villa, and we'll see you tomorrow. Talk to y'all soon.